All right, ready when you are, Lou.
Okay, let's start with a roll call.
Sure, and I'm hoping I don't miss anybody because there's a lot of names on the screen. Ms. Wells,
Here.
Mr. Witherspoon,
Here.
Ms. Thomas,
Here.
Goldstein,
Here.
Mr. Cantor,
Here.
Mr. Rowena,
Here.
Mr. Johnson,
Here.
Mr. Mancini.
Here.
And Mr. Schulman.
Here. All right. Sounds like a full house on our side, and I see that as of this moment, we have 137 participants. So let's get going. I'll call the meeting to order. We've done a roll call. We have a single public hearing tonight, and it's 6-20 SP, Norden Place, KB LLC, 10 Norden Place, special permit. I want to begin by indicating that I received a little earlier this evening, among a group of letters that were forwarded to me by the staff, a letter from an attorney who represents some residents in East Norwalk. He has asked that we continue this hearing, that we not close it this evening, in order to give him, representing his clients, an opportunity to familiarize himself more closely with the facts in this matter. As a result, the public hearing, we'll talk about it later, but when we conclude this evening, we'll reconvene the hearing, likely our first or second meeting in January. The other thing that happened after we held our last meeting of the commission is we met for 5.5 hours. And at the end of that time, we were all exhausted and feeling as if we had to make a decision at that point, we might not make the best decision possible. So this evening, I am somewhat artificially going to end this meeting. We'll try and do it at sort of a natural cutoff point, but probably somewhere between 9 and 9:30, which gives us a meeting of about 3.5 hours. And again, not to keep anyone from speaking, because anyone who hasn't had an opportunity to speak at this evening's meeting will have an opportunity to speak when we continue the hearing. If any of the commissioners feel differently, feel free to express your opinion, but I think I'm representing pretty fairly what we agreed at our last meeting. That when meetings get too long, we're really not serving the best interests of the city. Okay, with that, let me explain. Again, we're now up to 170 participants, how we conduct these public hearings. The public hearings are held in accordance with the laws of the state of Connecticut and regulations of the city of Norwalk. First, the applicant has an opportunity to present the facts of their case. The commission members have an opportunity anytime during that presentation and after to ask questions, to raise questions of the applicant. When the applicant has completed we invite the public to participate. An awful lot of public this evening. Typically, we do not set a time limit on how long people can speak, but we do ask that if someone has already made the same points that you're going to make, if in everybody's interest, if you could keep it, your presentation short. After the public has had an opportunity to air their views, the applicant then has an opportunity for rebuttal. And again, the commissioners may ask questions. When the public is speaking, it's not entirely appropriate to address your questions to the commission. You should address your questions to the applicant, because like you, we're here to hear what everyone has to say. We have an obligation to listen to all of the facts before we render any decision. And I'll speak again before we open it up to the public, but with that, I'll call on Attorney Cavallo to begin the presentation for the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, commissioners, Mr. Kleppen, members of the public, Mayor Rilling. My name is Carolyn Cavallo. I'm an attorney with Shipman and Goodwin LLP, and tonight we have the following members of our development team with us. My colleague, Andrea Gomes from Shipman and Goodwin, Adam Altman from Caber Group, Craig Benneroff from Benneroff Properties, Grant Wright, our project architect from Borison Architects and Associates, Eric Lindquist, our project engineer from Tighe & Bond, Craig Yanis, our traffic engineer from Tighe & Bond, Tim Cucab, our certified hazardous materials manager from Tighe & Bond, David Greenberg, our acoustician from Creative Acoustics, and Don Klepper-Smith, economist from DataCore Partners. A little housekeeping before we begin the presentation to bring the commissioners up to date on where we are in our requirements. First, we would request that the Zoning Commission incorporate the record of our preliminary review meetings into the record of the public hearing, so it is complete. We will also note that Governor Lamont's executive orders 7B and 7I provide the Zoning Commission with the authority to have virtual meetings during their state of emergency and to post applicable hearing notices online. Notice of this hearing was published online on November 25th and in the Norwalk Hour on November 25th and December 3rd. Our application materials are posted on the city's website and have been available to the public at least 24 hours in advance of a meeting, including our December 2nd supplemental materials package recently submitted to the commission. Proof of neighbor notifications of the public hearing were submitted to Mr. Kleppen on December 3rd and 7th. Brief word on our application and the proposal. If Andrea can share her screen. This property is a portion of 10 Norton Place, located in a restricted industrial zone. This application was first filed on June 30th, 2020. The applicant received conservation approval in July of 2020. As the Zoning Commission knows, we've appeared before you on 3 separate occasions for preliminary review. We have also conducted neighborhood outreach efforts, including direct communications with members of the public, and 2 separate meetings at the request of the staff with the ENNA board. The result of those efforts is the application before you tonight. And we thank the Zoning Commission and the planning staff for all of their time and effort. To date, we have obtained sign-offs from DPW, Building Department, Fire Marshal, First Taxing District for Water, Health Department, and WPCA. We are awaiting final comments from Norwalk Transportation, Mobility, and Parking, and Eversource Gas and Electric. This is a proposal for a business-to-business warehouse and distribution logistics center located in a portion of the existing building located on 10 Norton Place, Lot A. It will contain approximately 330 square feet, projected to house 2 to 3 tenants. Though the ownership has not yet identified specific tenants for this space, all tenants will be in the business-to-business logistics industry, which means these tenants will not and have never been intended to be engaged in last-mile delivery or business-to-consumer distribution. Typical tenant operations in business-to-business warehousing and distribution are businesses that distribute goods and supplies to a variety of businesses, including, by way of example, as we have set forth in our materials, Gray Bar Electric, and these are just industry standards, specializing in supply chain management services and a distributor of high quality components, serving the construction market, the commercial, industrial, and government market, and the industrial and utility markets. Or Fulfillment Works. It specializes in logistics and inventory management for retail businesses. Our most recent submission was a supplemental materials package submitted December 2nd. I've had the opportunity to read the most recent emails and letters that Mr. Kleppen had forwarded to us this evening, and there's been some feedback from members of the public regarding the length of the package and new application materials. We will just point out, as the commission is well aware, many pages of these supplements are required as appendices and exhibits to our expert reports.
What?
The package is not a new application, but is in fact supplemental material and proposals designed to address the feedback we've received so far from the commission, members of the public, and staff. You will note that we have proposed new site improvements and public improvements as part of our most recent submission. While we stand by our expert team and their conclusions that our proposal will not adversely affect the site or surrounding road network, we have read the emails and letters from the neighbors and the public stakeholders, and we've heard the public's concerns. We respectfully submit that these concerns, though heartfelt, are not based in fact or on qualitative expert evidence. But you will hear again tonight that there are no operational, environmental, safety concerns with the proposal as is. Having said that, however, we have proposed additional revisions to the plans and conditions of approval that we believe go above and beyond in addressing these concerns. These proposed conditions and revisions will be discussed in more detail throughout our presentation tonight, but I will just note and summarize. Norden will direct its tenants to instruct all trucks to avoid deliveries between the hours of 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. to the extent commercially practicable. Norden will direct its tenants to instruct all trucks to utilize the preferred truck routes to the extent commercially practicable. Norden will improve the turning radii, and this is all subject to review and approval of the city. So this is why we have not yet updated our submissions. These are just proposed public improvements. Norden would improve the turning radii on the northeast corner of East Avenue and Fitch Street. The radii improvement would eliminate any restrictions for trucks on what was previously marked as the secondary truck route, but what will now become the primary truck route with the improvement, thereby providing a more direct access route between the site and 995 and reducing the potential site-generated traffic from traveling north on Strawberry Hill Avenue and past the schools and residential properties on that street. These proposed improvements, as shown in our supplement, appear to fit within the existing city-owned right-of-way and would require the relocation or replacement of traffic signal equipment. Alternatively, Norden would be willing to fund this improvement should the city wish to undertake that improvement itself. Norden would also install radar detection on Strawberry Hill Avenue. Norden would complete adaptive signal control improvements along Strawberry Hill at the Norden Place and Beacon Street intersection. Norden would be willing to make a donation of $10,000 to the Norwalk Police Department to be used for the education and hiring of crossing guards along Strawberry Hill Ave. Norden will incorporate solar panels onto the proposed facility to address requests for LED incorporation, subject to further engineering, thereby reducing the carbon footprint of the proposed facility. And where we can, in conjunction with Connecticut DOT right-of-ways and other access easements to our adjacent neighbors, we would propose to add more trees to the site where it's practicable. With that, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, we'll jump right into our expert and other testimony. We've done our best to develop a concise and comprehensive presentation. So we would request that the commission reserve its questions to the end of our presentation, though absolutely jump in if you need to, but the commission may just find those questions largely will be answered. I would like to begin with engineering, which is Eric Lindquist. Eric, if you could.
Absolutely. I will try and share my screen now. Will it do it? Does it? All right. So I will share it right now. Hold on one second. I think I have to. It's not letting me share my screen, so it's sharing by application. So I'll probably have to cancel the screen share and start it over when I do the PDFs. But good evening. For the record, my name is Eric Lindquist. I'm a professional engineer licensed in the state of Connecticut and a senior project manager at Ty & Bond. I thought I'd start off the presentation by giving a brief overview of the existing conditions and then give a, once again, very brief summary of the proposed improvements since they're fairly limited for from the site plan side of things. So basically, here's the site. You'll be familiar with 95 to the north, the rail line to the south, Norden Place running along the western portion, and the data center that was previously approved and built on site to the far eastern end. There are 3 existing curb cuts located along Norden Place, and the access that we're going to be using for trucks is the middle access right here. And we're going to continue to use the existing routing that's on the site for traffics through the site. And if I zoom in a little bit here, why is it not zooming? I have to do it like this. So if I zoom in here just a tad, you can see the striping that's out there now. So basically the trucks will come in, turn down this way, run along this piece here, right? This long triangular sliver here is the portion that's being used by Connecticut DOT right now. They're using it for a laydown area for some of the work they've been doing in the area. But our access line will run right alongside of this and over to this side and continue to use what's out there now. I just wanted to highlight some of the things that are out there now that will be improved in all the plans in a few seconds. But there's an existing parking lot up here with 2 curb cuts off of the access road used by Avalon to access their site, Avalon being over here to the far east, not shown. So we'd be replacing this area impervious coverage with a loading dock that would connect to here. We'd maintain the curb cut in this area and the curb cut in this area while eliminating this and cleaning up this approach, making it a safer, more pedestrian friendly environment for those using this for walking. So having said that, I will now go into the portion with the PDF. So I think I may have to leave the presentation and then come back in. So bear with me if I can figure this out. How do I release from this? Is it up here? Stop share, there it is. So give me 1 second while I share the other PDF. All right, so this is our overall site plan. This kind of speaks to what I was talking about. I'll go to the blow-up plans to show the improvements, but I just wanted to give a general overview of things. The clouds you see on the plans right now represent the revisions we've been making throughout this process of going back and forth with the city and comments from the neighbors and the city in general, adding some of the stuff over here and changing the entrance and things of that nature, putting the zoning information and parking information in this sheet. As we go through each page, continuous page. So as I go to this sheet, this is the proposed site plan, which shows the proposed improvements. So here is the access drive that's coming in, the existing one I mentioned before that runs along the DOT portion storage area. So what we've had to do in this area is adjust some of the existing curbs for these islands that run along this existing parking area to accommodate better access for the trucks. So there's back and forth travel lane for both inward and outbound vehicles. We also added accessible parking in this area and this area to address code issues. And this just gives all the call outs and things for what's going on there. And also to get rid of, if you'll notice here, there were some existing parking spaces that were removed, notably handy accessible spaces. So a lot of those need to be relocated as well. So what we've done is we've added a new heavy duty pavement section that comes through here and goes over the existing parking area. So we have this new pavements, run of pavement through here, but we've reduced pavement up along the edge here where the curb cuts are that we're closing. So we have this continuous paved area that goes up here and out here, but the trucks will be limited to coming in this way and leaving this way. So there will be no use of trucks going up here except for maneuvering. These are the loading bays right here. These are all new loading bays on the north side of the building. There will also be some additional proposed loading bays on the southern side of the building. There are existing loading bays there now. We'll just be extending a couple of docks along the side of that to provide additional loading spaces throughout that area. So that really limits the site improvements. There's not a lot going on here. That just shows basically what the proposed improvements are around the building. I've included some plans. I don't need to go into much detail on this, but this just shows the grading to accommodate the revisions we're doing. This is obviously up higher because it's the second level as opposed to this being on a lower level. So there's some grade change through here, which we've accommodated and provide adequate slopes for, and just showing some of the other grading improvements. And then this is the plan for the drainage improvements. So what's going on here is we've added a little bit of impervious improvements that are in addition to what's out there. So this was the landscaped area before. We're adding impervious coverage, but we're reducing it up here. There was a net increase in this area of impervious coverage. So we put underground infiltration to mitigate that. This is equivalent to 1 inch of storage for all the impervious area that's out there, 1 inch of rainfall storage. So this thing is designed to fully infiltrate that before discharging out to the existing storm sewer that goes out here and runs along. The engineering report fully documents the design requirements and the city standards and what we've done to meet them. And if you have any questions on it later, I'd be more than happy to answer them. But this is the design that's being out there right now. Utilities are not being touched except for some minor tweaks around the building to accommodate the loading dock improvements. But the building will be serviced in the same way as it currently is. And the mechanical equipment will stay the same as it currently is out there as well. This is just the erosion control plan showing that we're maintaining erosion control fencing and other measures to prevent the mitigation of suspended solids from getting into existing storm drainage outlets out there, to make sure we're not contaminating, but to providing solids and things out in the wetlands that we don't want to do. So all the fines will be collected on site during the construction sequence. Anti-tracking pads will be provided to prevent trucks during construction from running off and tracking pavement elsewhere. So that plan just kind of documents that. And there's also details included in the package to show further information on that. Here we show the lighting and the planting plans. There's not a lot going on here as well. We added some additional plantings in the island. We thought that would be a nice improvement to provide along this runway of the truck traffic. We've also beefed up the landscaping around the loading area for the entrance here, as well as for along the walking area and the sidewalks that go along the frontage where the access for Avalon is. So there's a few poles, and it's probably easier to see them on the next sheet, but you can see the detail for the lights over here. But this is the photometric plan showing what we're doing. There's several wall-mounted lights along the building, as well as, I believe, 5 new poles located around the entrance and the truck maneuvering area. So with that, I think that covers all the site improvements, and I'd be more than happy to stop sharing and pass it along to the next.
Thanks, Eric. Next, we'll get into architectural details with Grant Wright. Grant?
Yeah, Grant. If you're talking, Grant, I think you're muted.
Can you hear me all right now?
Yep.
Okay, sorry about that. Love this. Again, my name is Grant Wright. Good evening, everybody. I've been with Kenneth Borson. I'm the senior project architect at Kenneth Borson Architects, and I've been working on this project for the past year or two now with the team. And I just want to cover a couple quick conceptual renderings and the general floor plan layouts that we've been discussing and working on for the past few months now. On the screen here, you'll see, so these are conceptual renderings based on the existing conditions of the current 10 Norden building. As Andrea and Eric had mentioned, we're working on approximately half of the overall square footage of this building, about 330 square feet. There's 2 levels, a lower and upper level, with the proposed work to be, we're working on 19 new loading docks at this point. On the upper image there in that rendering, you'll see the location of 8 new loading docks, which is the northeast corner of the building, as Eric just mentioned. It's an enclosed loading dock location, and we'll see in the overall floor plans as we go through it further. But on that upper portion, you can see the extent of where those loading docks will be. The lower portion, the lower image there is along the southeast corner of the building. Currently, there's 5 existing loading docks. We'll be adding 6 new loading docks. There's also conversations about the landscaping and potential lighting that will be included in the proposed plan. So along that upper image, you'll see, you can't see in the image, but the idea is that it'll be limited lighting. There'll be parking lot lighting, a few poles, and then there'll be some of the exterior lights located at each of the docks there. I can go to the next slide. Again, this is just more of an overall to see the traffic pattern that Eric was just talking about in the new paved section of the northeast corner of the new docks. So the only area that everything else there of this building is pretty much staying as is. The proposed work architecturally is minimal. It's just going to be those docks you see there with where the 3 trucks are located now, but there's 8 docks there. Minimal work happening to the rooftops. I know there were concerns about mechanical systems. The idea is to work with some of the existing conditions that are there now, and most likely minimizing the amount of actual equipment that's located on that roof. For rendering purposes, it's not shown, but you can see in some of the clear images, aerial images, that it is pretty minimal. Go to the next slide. Thank you. Here's a general overview. We were able to superimpose our renderings with some of the drone photos, and this gives you more of a rough idea of where how the building sits between the train line and to the north, which you can't see, but 95 is located just to the north, upper north right corner of the northeast corner of the sheet there. So this is looking at the lower corner. This is looking at the southeast corner of the building, which will have the 11 new docks there. I'm sorry, 6 new, 5 existing. And you can also see the existing parking layouts and some of the landscaping that is going to be proposed. Next. Again, here's a clearer image of that rendering. Same idea, superimposed over the existing drone photos. 95 to the right and the train tracks to the left there. So you can get a clear idea. The northeast corner is the lower right-hand side of that building, where you can see the truck path. You can see the red and blue trucks there. And then the southeast corner is to the left. And you can see the location of the asphalt and the circulation paths through the site. These next 2 slides are just covering the general idea. These, again, very conceptual ideas. And since we don't have we're still working, we don't have a tenant proposed or, selected for these spaces yet. This is the portion of the building that will be renovated. Currently, there's a lot of walls, so it'll come down to demolition and creating these open spaces. This lower level here shows about 110,000 square feet, and some of the comments came back on proposed office space, so we take into account the proper parking and make sure we cover all the parking count for this actual use. So that lower corner there, the dark gray corner, shows the proposed office space, which is typically based on this type of use is about 15 to 20% of the floor space. So in this image, to the north of on this page, and just to be clear that this for our drawings, it's a bit confusing, but our images are rotated. So the upper portion of this sheet is actually the south, even though for there, so that right there is those are the south docks. The upper left-hand corner there is the location of the 11 docks. And then if you go to the next sheet, again, we can see the 2 tenant spaces here. The dark gray shows the approximate percentage of office space. And then the lower portion of this drawing, you can see the location of the 8 loading docks. So other than that, it's just clearing the interior partitions out, opening the space up for the purposes of the use, and then creating some office space and distribution area. Obviously, as we go through and develop the design and design development drawings, contract drawings, we'll get more into the code and the ratings of this space. But for now, this is just to give a general idea of how this space can be potentially broken out. So right now, we're just showing the 3 tenants. And I think that's it.
Thanks, Grant.
Welcome.
Oh, sorry.
Sure, no, that's right. I'm good.
I was going to mention, pertinent to the architectural renderings, we will work with the city on signage after the tenants are secured and after the special permit process, just to complete that. Now we'll go through acoustics with David Greenberg.
David, if you're dialed in on your phone to do audio, hit *9. Then *9 or *6 on mute. *6. There we go.
We don't hear you if you're wondering.
Okay, now you should hear me.
You're good.
Okay. Technology is wonderful. Hello, everybody. I'm the project acoustics consultant, and just to give you a sense of my background, I've been in acoustics for 35 years. I'm the president and founding principal of Creative Acoustics in our 20th year. My undergraduate degrees are in music with a side of physics from Indiana, interdisciplinary engineering from Purdue, and a master's in acoustics from Penn State. I've been asked to analyze and propose the proposed use of this site for the use that we've been talking about. Especially the noise that might impact the nearby communities. In the next few minutes, I'm going to introduce you to the basic acoustics used to study a case like this, the variables we considered in setting up the predictive noise propagation calculations, and the conservative assumptions made all along the way to ensure fairness, always siding with the neighbors, and lastly, the result of those predictive calculations. So just a little bit of Acoustic 101. The study of sound propagation is comprised of 3 parts: the source of the sound, in this case the trucks, 2, the path of the sound, the line of sight to the homes, to the nearby homes, and the receptor of the sound, meaning the neighbors. In this case, there are 2 additional factors that must be considered. First, the City of Norwalk's noise ordinance, which differentiates between daytime and nighttime. And second, that the ambient sound in the environment is measured because it's important in the perception of sound. And it's also detailed in the noise ordinance. How is the noise from this proposed warehouse and distribution facility assessed? As I mentioned, we took every opportunity to employ conservative approaches along the way, again, all favoring the neighbors. A, the decisions of which neighboring properties to study. B, the type of trucks. C, the truck locations related to the properties, as well as D, the numerous numerical assumptions in the calculations. Don't worry, I won't bore you with those for the most part. Okay, the sources. Discussions with our team provided us with a realistic sense of the anticipated number of trucks and their likely activities during the nighttime and daytime operations. We used these predictions to conservatively model the soundscape of the site and neighboring communities. One of our most conservative moves was to assume that all trucks at any given time are semi-trailer trucks moving through the site or at the docks, when we know that the trucks on site will actually range from box trucks to semi-trailers. We used measured noise levels, all from semis, with one exception: accelerating from a stop, unloading at a dock, dieseling, backing up, and actively refrigerating. In reality, again, many of the trucks will be much less noisy than semis. We use a scientific sound level meter at a determined distance in each case. The truck backup tone sound levels were included in the study after the commissioners rightly requested that we do so. We recorded, and that's, I'll get into this a little bit later, but that's the one that wasn't a semi, and you'll understand why that's important. We recorded all sound levels in the much more detailed octave band noise data rather than the single number dBA, as is used in the noise ordinance, almost all noise ordinances. In doing so, the accuracy of the several step calculations were significantly improved, again, to the benefit of the neighbors. The receptors, the neighbors. Again, for purposes of providing a conservative estimate, and in order to look at all acoustically relevant scenarios, we chose several different receptor points. The locations of those receptors were chosen conservatively by looking only at those with direct adjacency and line of sight to the 10 Norton Place site. In fact, we're looking at that scenario on the screen right now. The sound path, the determination of the sound propagation paths included line of sight distances and attenuation due to spherical spreading, a bit of excess attenuation due to a geographical feature along the south border. And this is important, ground attenuation was not considered, though there would certainly have been some. This was another conservative step. Sorry. For comparison with the predicted sound levels, ambient sound conditions during the daytime and nighttime hours were measured and recorded during both day and night. As mentioned, for the calculations, we took every opportunity to favor the neighbors. One, we looked only at the most relevant and conservative truck activity on site, particularly with respect to truck types. I'm hearing an echo now. And the proximities to the neighboring homes. Are you still able to hear me okay? Yes, okay.
Yes.
Thank you. We used safety factors to cover trucks louder than those measured. We used the closest neighbors' properties as the receptor locations. We predicted noise levels right at the homes where it is most relevant. We assumed that the home's windows were open rather than sealed shut, which is another actually very conservative move. We carried the calculations in the more telling octave bands rather than the single number dBA. Sorry if I'm repeating this, but this is just a compact list of all the conservative moves. And we ignored excess ground attenuation. And we used box truck. Okay, here's that exception I was talking about. Excuse me. We used box truck backup tone sound levels rather than semi-trailer. Although the devices for the two truck types are the same, because the tone generator mounts to the back of the semi's tractor rather than its trailer. But let me start that over. Although the devices for the two truck types are the same, because the tone generator mounts to the back of the semi's tractor rather than its trailer, but at the very back of the box truck the box truck's tone is by far the louder. So because it's just more, it's closer to the back of the truck and there's less truck to attenuate the noise from the tone generator. And finally, we assumed that the backup tone had the truck heading in to the dock, which is, when you think about it, it's kind of silly. Why would a truck that's going to unload head in? But in this way, the tone speaker is facing toward the neighbors, and this is yet another conservative move. Actually, and then I said that's the last one, but there's actually one more. That it's a little hard to explain. The speakers have a radiation characteristic. When you're on axis with a speaker, you're getting much more of its sound. So in every case, through my calculations, the model assumes that the listener is on axis with that tone generating speaker, but that's only going to be true for a moment for any given situation as the truck backs out. I mean, it would be quite a coincidence if it was backing straight toward a neighbor. So it's rarely going to actually happen that way. But nevertheless, I assumed that it always was right on axis. So now let's have a look at the two site plans. We're already looking at the daytime analysis. And I'll just list really quickly the daytime hours as defined by the noise ordinance. 7 a.m. On Monday to Friday, it's 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Saturday, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday and federal holidays and state holidays. And the exception is that for properties, and this applies here, which is why I'm mentioning this little exception. For properties within 200 feet of an industrial zone, which this is, daytime ends at 10 p.m. rather than 8 p.m. Okay, nighttime hours are defined as 8 p.m. to 7 a.m. Sunday through Friday, 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. Friday to Saturday, and 8 p.m. to 9 a.m. Sunday and Saturday. Saturday hours apply to federal and state holidays, and the same exception of the 200-foot zone applies where nighttime begins at 10 p.m. rather than 8 p.m. The daytime plan shows the seven neighboring properties that we chose to study, A through G. A in the upper left, B in the lower left. C is all the way over at the Avalon East. D is, there it is. D and E are on Triangle Avenue. F is on Howard Street. And G is on Heron Court. So all those blue lines with the numbers in the middle of them are obviously the distances, the respective distances from each of the trucks to each of those, well, not each of them, but to the closest homes that would, for which that noise source would be relevant. Also shown on this plan, the most conservative truck locations and actions were used in my predictions. Specifically measured levels from the trailer trucks that were accelerating, dieseling, unloading, backing up, and with refrigeration on. These are conservative and relevant assumptions because they encompass the range of truck actions that will ever happen on site. But it's unlikely that this many semi-trailers will ever be operating in this manner at the site at the same time. In reality, some of the trucks will be the smaller and quieter box trucks. Also shown on the plan are locations where ambient noise readings were made, all on public land. Those are those blue circles that are sprinkled around. The distances, I mentioned the distances, the Interstate 95 directly to the north, and the Amtrak Metro North and freight tracks directly to the south. The truck bays on the north side do not contribute to the noise to these communities, to these homes, because there are no direct or even nearly direct paths to those homes on the east, west, or south. For the nighttime scene, which I'll get to in a moment, we use the same homes and you know, the receptor points, but there are fewer trucks around because nighttime operations would be significantly less than daytime. The results of the predictive daytime study. Do we have that on the next? Yeah. For the daytime hours, the predicted noise levels at the 7 receptor points are within the decibel level set by the daytime hours for the noise ordinance. Okay, the nighttime site plan is here. Again, A through G properties, and in this case, well, actually, I meant to point out in the daytime study that the 200-foot line is shown on the bottom, just south. Yeah, that's 200 feet south of the property line, and then there's also a 200-foot line to the west that includes B and A and B. And on the south, it within the 200 feet is I think only D and E, or maybe only E. I'll have to look to see what I included on that. So there's one truck at the dock, at the south dock at night. There's one truck that's moving along just to the right of that, right? There's one truck entering the site. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. Then, as I mentioned, there was a backing up truck, but it wasn't included in this graphic. We'll show you the next one, because that was, as I said, it was added later as requested. Again, these are very conservative assessments, and keep in mind that although this activity is occurring at the same time, for purposes of our study, it's highly unlikely that 4 trucks will be actively using this site at nighttime hours. So, in other words, the sound from all these trucks, both in daytime and nighttime, are occurring simultaneously, and my predictive model includes those assumptions. Okay, the results of actually, before we leave this graphic, can you zoom in to the lower left corner a little bit to those? Yeah. Well, thank you. Yes. We're going to get to the numbers on the next page, but it's important to understand what's happening with the truck that's entering the site here. If you see those pink numbers, those that are following the road, that's the distance that it actually travels, and the distance, line of sight distance, is the lower straight line, and that's important because it turns out that the only, as you'll see on the table on the next page, the only case where there is a slight exceedance over the noise ordinance is when the truck is just entering the site. But it's only an exceedance for about 10 seconds, and it recedes 10 or 11 seconds as it recedes into the site. So from neighbor B, they're seeing the truck enter the site, and as it enters and it goes through those along that path, when it gets to that point, that pink dot there, it's fully within the noise code. But as it goes, it's getting closer and closer to that code level of 45 dBA. Which, by the way, I don't remember if I actually said this, but the Norwalk noise ordinance really does favor neighborhoods because more than most codes out there, because the number 45 dBA for nighttime levels is quite low. Most others that I'm familiar with, and also the author of this particular code, 50 is a much more common target for nighttime. So that's good. That's a good thing for the neighbors. Not good for noisemakers, but okay. So why don't we go on to the next table? So here you see that in all cases, but for property B, the nighttime noise code is met, and I just explained the circumstances of B. So it's now the other thing to understand there is that the noise level of that truck entering is similar in quality and in time factors, actually less in time, than a passing train, which is also is very nearby in that particular case, just coincidentally. But it's it's a sort of noise that in the middle of the night, or at nighttime, that's quite familiar, and in terms of the time that it takes to settle down. In fact, the trains are typically take a longer time, and it's more or less a constant, except for the diesel-powered engines there, which are much louder, and it will last a much longer time than the 10 or 11 seconds of the entering truck. I'm close to the end, so sorry about that. All right, so let's see. You have a backup tone. What's on the next sheet there? Okay, so this is the same as the daytime graphic, except now there's that red dot in the middle of that mess of lines, which is the closest the backing up truck would get to the neighbors to the south. And once again, excuse me. Once again, the noise code is met, and I'll go through a couple of the conservative. Well, we touched on this. I used the backup tone of a box truck because the speaker is much closer to the back of the truck, and therefore it's louder. And the fact that they're they're not, when they're backing up, when they're coming off of the dock, they're not really backing up. In reality, they're coming out. They will have backed up when they're entering the docking. But in that case, the tone is pointed toward the building. So you got energy reduction from that reflection, and it's also a longer path to get to from that reflected path to the neighbor. So it's a little nuts to build a model that I know is backwards, but it was just another conservative step, and yet the code is still met by this condition. And I mentioned the on-access business, which is also important to understand. In closing, my whole point here is that the conservative noise calculations predict no adverse noise impact to the existing community conditions. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, David.
Sure.
Our next presenter is, I'm hearing a little feedback. I'm sorry about that. Our next presenter is on environmental, and Tim QCAP. Tim?
Can you hear you, Tim?
Yeah, you're muted.
Still can't hear.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, forgive me on that, please. We have Teams and Zoom and everything else is a little bit different, so beg your pardon. My name is Tim Cucab. I'm with Ty and Bond. I'm the team leader of the Regulatory Compliance Group. My background, I've been with Ty and Bond for nearly 15 years. I was a graduate of Boston University's program of environmental analysis and policy. And what we did today was we put together a conceptual air emissions review comparing the proposed scenario to 3 previously approved scenarios for the site. All of these scenarios are based on what you'll hear in terms of specific truck trips on coming slides and information previously provided to the city. But it's very difficult to calculate air emissions. If you have a power plant or a single stack, it's very easy to get an accurate reading out of that stack. When it comes to vehicles, much like you saw on the previous slide, there's a wide variety of vehicle types, there's a wide variety of ages of vehicles, and a wide variety of pathways to the facility. So what we use in scenarios like this are emission factors, and emission factors are similar to if you go buy a new Prius, you get a mile per gallon type ratio. It's the same idea for pollutants, and these are pollutants, these are factors prepared by EPA with a lot of thought that goes into them. They are numerous thousands of vehicles are averaged together over a variety of operating scenarios. For the purpose of this study, we took a look at the Bureau of Transportation statistics that suggests that the average age of a vehicle on the road, both truck and car, is approximately 12 years old. So that's our starting point for an emission factor. And as you move in time, naturally vehicles and trucks are getting cleaner and cleaner. So we'd expect, again, these factors to be conservative. Similarly, on the truck side, the way factors are broken down are based on the type of truck, box truck, fuel type, et cetera. To be most conservative, our report took a factor for a semi-tractor trailer rig that utilized diesel fuel. So that's a very conservative factor because as we know from the noise slides, that's not going to be the only type of truck coming to the facility. So if we look at our results up here, we have our proposed project, our previously approved research and development center, our previously approved manufacturing operations, and a previously approved general office scenario. I apologize if you're hearing the paper turn here on the microphone. In each scenario, we were provided based on either industry standard literature or some assumptions. Based on the total number of car traffic that we would see and the total number of truck traffic that we would see. And for the purposes of the factor, it tends to be based on a mile, amount of pollutant per mile traveled. So for this facility, we had a value of 3.8 miles, which assumes a route from between exit 16 and 17 through the community to the facility. And what you'll see up here is relative, we have hydrocarbons, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, nitrogen oxides, and particulate matter. These are the primary vehicle pollutants that we tend to investigate. The proposed project falls virtually right in line with the previous projects, with some instances of a slightly higher value, some instances of a slightly lower value. Again, this is in an industrial setting. We're adjacent to 95. Which by any estimation would be significantly greater in terms of an emissions impact, in some cases 15 times, 20, 30 times more based on the traffic passing through 95. If there's any questions on sort of the history of the emission factors or how they're derived, they are in the literature previously provided. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Now we will have a presentation by our traffic engineer, Craig Yanis.
Yes, thank you. Just set up my screen here and get started. You can see my slide, right?
Yes.
So for the record, Craig Yanis, project manager at Ty and Bond, professional engineer, professional traffic operations engineer, and roadway safety professional. I'm going to go through an overview of the comprehensive and industry standards traffic study that we prepared for this development, along with the additional information we provided in 3 supplemental packages. As Carolyn summarized earlier, our analyses and supplemental packages have been prepared based on conversations with city staff, the zoning commission, the peer reviewer, WSP, and the neighborhood association. We've heard the traffic concerns specifically about truck traffic and safety. And although our conclusions have remained that the proposed development will not have a significant impact to traffic operations in the study area, we've continued to evaluate ways to improve the local roadways in the area. And we have some improvements that the applicant is prepared to complete that I'll discuss during this presentation. I also wanted to add that WSP's 1123 review concluded with the following statement. WSP has found that the traffic study and subsequent responses to comment letters follow the standard guidelines for preparation of traffic impact study. WSP considers that the traffic study and supplement documentation were prepared in a professional manner consistent with transportation industry standard and applications regarding crash evaluation, trip generation, trip distribution, and traffic analysis. That letter had a few other items that we addressed in our submission. We received, so that was in the 12-2 submission, and WSP sent a letter back to us today through the city about those responses. So, and I believe that they're here tonight, and I'll let them detail their thoughts. But overall, we believe we've addressed and satisfied their major concerns, as noted by the conclusion statement that they prepared in their package. So moving to the study itself. So first we have the site location in the study area. You can see the map up in front of you, the site in yellow, and the study area included signalized intersections, Strawberry Hill Avenue at Beacon and Norton Place, and then the Route 136 Winfield Street and Triangle Street intersection to the south, as well as the 3 driveways to the site on Norton Place. As Eric mentioned, the middle driveway will be the truck traffic route, another traffic route, and the north driveway can also be accessed by vehicles to the site. These intersections were selected based on the City of Norwalk traffic and impact assessment guidelines. We analyzed the weekday morning and afternoon peak hours, which was 7:15 to 8:15 in the morning and 5 to 6 p.m. in the afternoon. These peak hours are when the local roadways are at their busiest and there's the most potential for site traffic to have capacity impacts. As Eric, and I already mentioned the driveway setup. So this slide here, we have the traffic generation of the site. This summarizes all of our tables and our analysis into one table. So the proposed warehouse use is at the top, and the previous previously approved uses are listed at the bottom. Going left to right, we have the AM peak hour, the PM peak hour, and the daily traffic on the right. So the proposed warehouse use is expected to generate approximately 65 morning trips, 67 afternoon trips, and 574 daily trips. And going down this table, you'll see that the peak hours and daily for the previously approved uses are significantly higher than the proposed use. We also highlight the expected truck traffic on this table. It shows the proposed warehouse is expected to generate similar peak hour truck trips and approximately 43 more daily trips when compared to the manufacturing use, so comparing these numbers here. And that the previously approved general office and research and development space has less peak hour truck traffic and less daily truck traffic than the warehouse use, but significantly more overall traffic. So summarizing this table, the proposed warehouse use is expected to generate significantly less peak hour and daily traffic compared to the previously approved uses on the site. And overall, the warehouse use is a generally low trip generating use with approximately 7 peak hour trips and 575 daily trips. And WSP, the peer reviewer, has reviewed and agreed with these trip generation estimates. So the next piece and something that we've discussed at previous meetings. Planning for truck access is significantly important to this project. The next few slides are going to show the analyses we've prepared to date and reviewed with the city and WSP. And I'll get into the potential improvement that may impact these routes, but for now, we'll talk to them as they are shown here. So there's 3 sets, green, yellow, and red, or purple. So the green and the yellow are the primary and secondary routes that take truck traffic from the site at this location, and 2 major access points, so I-95 and East Avenue, Route 7 and I-95 via Route 1. And if you go Route 1 into Westport, there's other access points to I-95. So these routes have turning radii restrictions, but no clearance height or weight restrictions on them, and allow truck traffic. The roadways are designed for truck traffic. They're functionally designed for truck traffic, which I'll show again in a little bit. The last set of routes in pink are, tertiary routes, as we're calling them. Essentially, these have significant overheight clearance limitations of 11 to 12 feet that would not be feasible for larger trucks. They have turning movements that are difficult for larger trucks. And so these are options for smaller box trucks and or delivery vans of that sort that could take these routes. So they would have to fit within the constraints of the existing roadway system in order to take these routes. But we didn't want to leave them out, as they do represent potential routes for truck traffic to the site. So this slide here, the next thing that both WSP and the commission requested in our review was volumes on these proposed routes. So we reviewed available data from Connecticut DOT at all these different locations, as well as the data we collected. So here on this map, you have the same 3 sets of paths that you saw on the previous slide, but now you have these boxes with the arrows pointing down to a location. And within the boxes, you have existing truck traffic on the left and proposed truck traffic by itself on the right. So adding the 2 together, you get the total. So we'll start our way at this, we'll start at the site and work our way out to the major regional routes. On Norton Place, we have existing today 23 morning, 6 afternoon, and 155 daily truck trips. The existing truck traffic increases as the routes travel onto roadways with higher volumes and higher functional classifications, with over 220 daily trips at the Beacon intersection with Strawberry Hill Avenue, 317 at the Norton Place intersection. You have over 1,000 truck trips on US Route 1 to the north, and over 1,200 up to 1,400 truck trips daily on East Avenue. In terms of the proposed truck traffic, we have the 7 weekday morning, the 10 weekday afternoon, and the 198 daily trips shown here. And then you can see as we distribute those to the primary, secondary, and tertiary routes, you can see the percentages that go out from there. So the numbers being on the primary route, 4 a.m., 5 p.m., and 99 daily truck trips. On the secondary, you have 3, 4, and 79. And then tertiary both have 1 trip in the morning and the afternoon, and 10 up to 10 daily. So we presented these at the last meetings, and based on the traffic capacity analysis results that I'm going to present in a few minutes, the study area has sufficient capacity to accommodate the expected passenger car and truck traffic to the site. So before I get into the improvement that we're proposing in our most recent submission, I also want to review roadway safety, because that was another important concern for everyone involved. We realize the importance and within the neighborhood, and fortunately we have found that the reported collisions did not result in significant injuries or fatalities, which is a good thing, and we want to keep it that way. So we're doing a very detailed analysis, and we'll start with the study area. We found that there are 12 reported collisions in a 3-year period. As I mentioned, no significant injuries or fatalities were reported. No collisions between vehicles and bicycles or pedestrians. There was 1 collision where a bicyclist hit a pedestrian on a sidewalk at the Triangle and Winfield Street intersection. No collisions involved trucks or buses. In addition to the hard data analysis of the collisions here, we also looked at the existing conditions of the roadways to determine if there's any substandard conditions that may result in a safety concern. The study area roadways have standard 11-foot lanes or wider, dedicated pedestrian facilities, and either bicycle lanes and or shared bike lane markings to denote where bicyclists can share the road or use the road. We have a few photos on this side. On the left-hand side, you have Norton Place looking north and south. You can see in the image here, there are sharrows along each side of the roadway, as well as sidewalks on both sides. On the right, you have Strawberry Hill Avenue at Norton Place looking north and at Beacon Street looking south. So this is a location where DOT is currently reconstructing the bridge and replacing the signals, although the layout of the roadway will remain the same. So there'll be bike lanes in each direction, 11-foot travel lanes, and as well as sidewalks on either side. And you can see by the pictures, there's large vehicles in some of these, and you can see how they fit within the context of the roadway. So the next piece that we looked at was roadway safety on Strawberry Hill Avenue. We were asked to expand our study area to include this location based on comments from the Commission, WSP, and the Neighborhood Association. So within this data, we saw 60 reported collisions. Again, no significant injuries or fatalities reported. So jumping away from the table, you can just see the bullet points here. One pedestrian collision occurred at approximately 261 Strawberry Hill Avenue, where a pedestrian was struck crossing mid-block without a crosswalk at dusk. That resulted in a minor injury. One collision involved a truck where a snowplow struck a fire hydrant. 3 collisions involved buses. One was when a car rear-ended a bus. One where a bus struck a utility pole, and one unknown that resulted in property damage only. And we have, similarly to the study area on this slide, we've shown pictures of Strawberry Hill Avenue with some larger vehicles on it. So similar to the study area, it has standard 11-foot travel lanes, bicycle facilities, and pedestrian facilities on them on both sides. So the conclusions for the safety review, no significant injuries or fatal crashes were reported within the study area, despite having varied traffic, including truck traffic. The roadways, we looked at the existing conditions and found no substandard conditions. The roadways are designed to accommodate truck traffic with their functional classification. They have standard lane widths and facilities and bicycle accommodations. The analyses did not identify any significant collision patterns, and both WSP and city staff have reviewed our analyses and agreed with this conclusion. All in all, the proposed site traffic is not expected to significantly impact roadways from a safety perspective. So with all that analysis of the truck routes and the volumes being said, we've heard the concerns about the truck routes past the schools and the residential areas and safety traveling north on Strawberry Hill Avenue. So the applicant is proposing to improve the northeast intersection of Fitch Street at East Avenue. So that's on the secondary route. As you come down Strawberry Hill Avenue and make a right turn onto Fitch, and then a right turn on East Avenue, and then 95 interchanges to the north. So this is just a concept level plan, conceptual plan, something that we obviously have to have more coordination with city staff to detail. We've had some initial conversations and they are positive. These improvements on top of the proposed East Avenue improvements that are going to be completed as part of the Walk Bridge project that the city of Norwalk is designing will significantly improve East Avenue from existing conditions. So just looking at the plan quickly, we have a WB67, so the largest truck that we designed for in Connecticut, making a right turn. You can see the existing curb line in the aerial, and then the red is the proposed curb line, maintaining the parking area in front of the church. And this improvement will impact the signal at the intersection, as will the improvement proposed by the city and the state. So these projects will have to be coordinated together. And as you can see by this graphic, within the right of way, we can improve the turning radius to accommodate the largest truck that we expect on the roadways. So the final piece that I want to review is our traffic capacity analysis. So we revisited these a few times based on comments from WSP, and our final set is presented in the 12-2 submission. The requested revisions that we incorporated did not significantly affect the conclusions of our study. Table 1 on this slide and in our submission summarizes the results. So the left set of 5 columns, so from here to here, is the weekday morning peak hour. The right-hand side is the weekday afternoon peak hour set of 5. The green box shows the future conditions with unit A1 being without unit A1 being occupied. So unit A1 is the other half of the building. So the remainder of the 630,000 square foot building, 300,000 square feet being unoccupied or similar or, not fully utilized as it is today. And the blue box is the future conditions with that unit A1 filled entirely with general office space, which is the most conservative worst case scenario. In terms of the trip generation, if you remember from that other slide. So looking at those boxes under both future scenarios, both AM and PM, AM on the left, PM on the right, the study area intersections continue to operate at acceptable overall level of service and or at background level of service, so no decrease. A majority of the increases in delay, the maximum being 4.3 seconds per vehicle, or less, and then the majority of them being under 1.5 seconds per vehicle. The site driveways, so the top 3 are the signalized intersections, the bottom 2 are the site driveways. The site driveways are expected to operate at level service C or better during the peak hours, which is a good condition. Based on these results, the proposed warehouse is not expected to significantly impact traffic operations within the study area without any changes to the roadway network. However, as I mentioned, we've heard the concerns of the commission, the city staff, and the stakeholders, and the applicant is willing to work with the city of Norwalk's traffic engineer to do one of 2 things. One being optimize the signal timing at the Structural Avenue intersections with Beacon Street and Norton Place at the opening of the Unit A2 building, which is the proposed side of the building, or a more comprehensive improvement installing an adaptive signal control system, which would allow the 2 intersections to adjust their signal timing regularly as traffic volumes change in the area. So regularly being, throughout the day, throughout the peak hour, as well as throughout the years as growth comes into play. For example, if the unit A1 turns out to be occupied, which wouldn't happen just under standard optimization. So we've included a second table here that shows the results of the combined with the proposed optimization. The optimization, so both would optimize the signal timing, both options. The system control would do it on a regular basis. And you can see the optimization significantly improves future traffic operations to close than or better than existing operations with overall level service C or better, and then acceptable level service D or better on all approaches. And this is something that WSP did look at and they agreed with putting in the adaptive signal control system. So this is my final slide. It presents the study conclusions, which remain the same as our original study. The proposed warehouse use is expected to generate a relatively low amount of traffic during the peak hours with approximately 70 trips. A detailed review of safety within the study area and along Strawberry Hill Avenue was conducted and did not identify any significant collision patterns or concerns with bicycle, pedestrian, and truck collisions. There were no serious injuries or fatalities reported. Trucks are expected to traverse the routes that have been designed for and carry existing truck traffic. The additional trips have a minimal operational impact hours. Based on our analysis, it's our professional opinion that the proposed development will not have on the local roadway network. The commission has been further supported by the peer reviewers, WSP's comments in agreement with our analyses and our responses to the outstanding comments that they've had. And although the study concludes that there's no significant impact, the applicant is prepared to complete improvements to East Avenue and at Fitch Street, as well as Strawberry Hill Avenue at Beacon and Norton Place, in order to improve the roadway system from the current conditions, as well as accommodate the site traffic. With that, I'll pass it back over to Carolyn.
Thanks, Craig. We'll have an economics presentation now by Don Klepper-Smith. Don?
Thank you, Carolyn. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. First off, thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Don Klepper-Smith, Chief Economist and Director of Research with DataCore Partners, which is now based in Hilton Head, South Carolina. This is my fourth time presenting in Norwalk. And by way of background, I've been doing this for 40 years. I chaired the Governor's Council of Economic Advisors under Governor Rell. I was corporate economist for Southern New England Telephone for 17 years and former president of the Southern Connecticut Business Economists, as well as an economic commentator for WTNH. Adam asked me to update my report, and so we produced a report which includes new pages 76 through 105. And I had an opportunity to provide some additional input, given where we are, given the COVID situation and the emergence of a US recession. I had an opportunity as well to look over Mr. Clippen's assessment and some questions that he might have. And I think the question was raised about something that was contradictory to my report, where we talked about housing prices going down, and over the short term, he raised the question, are not housing prices going up? And the answer to that question here boils down to short term versus long term. I have to say that right now we're looking at a very extreme situation here. As I said, I've been looking at the regional economies here, and to emphasize one key point, there is not one Connecticut economy. There are 169 different economies throughout Connecticut, as the economic drivers vary considerably across the state. But we have had an in-migration of about 15,000 people over the last 6 months due to the COVID situation. But as I've explained to many of my clients here, that's sort of like saying the Red Sox are up 5-0 in the first inning. It's nice to know, but it doesn't tell the whole story. We need to know what the rest of those innings are doing. And at the end of the day, we need to know there's in-migration, there's out-migration, there's foreign in-migration and net births. So the point needs to be made here is that when I looked at Steve's concern, it really boils down to short-term versus long-term. For many years, we've been tracking the data on housing prices out of from the Warren Group, and specifically looking at Fairfield County. And they've had a tough time dating back to the last recession. But as we can now state, we do have some in-migration. But what we do need to say here is that when you look at the longer term, and by that I mean between 2010 and 2019, we get a very different picture. What people are not aware of is that the state of Connecticut right now, or the latest data officially from census, shows that we're losing 424 people per week on a net basis to other states. The net out-migration, according to the Census Department, was 291 to be exact. And the 2020 data will not be available until the end of next year. So what I will say here is this, is that when we start stepping back and we start looking at the local economy, let me say a couple things here. What has surprised me more than anything else is that over the last year, number one, these are numbers I never thought I would see as a professional economist in my 40 years. What people are not aware of is that over the last 10 years, we created basically 103,000 jobs in the state of Connecticut. All of that job growth was wiped out in the month of April. We wiped out all of our job growth in Connecticut in 1 month. And right now, if we look at your labor market, specifically the Bridgeport-Stanford labor market area. It's one of the worst performing labor markets in the state. The data that we have as of September shows that employment for total non-farm is down 9.8% year over year versus 10.8% for Norwich. That's the worst. And then Connecticut is down 6.1 in the aggregate. When we start talking about these numbers short term, again, all well and good, but the long term really tells the story. And let me put it this way: in this recession, every job counts. According to the National Bureau of Economic Research, the recession started in February of this year. And what we can say here is that over the last 10 years, while the US economy has grown 25%, the Connecticut economy has grown only 1.1%. So when we started evaluating our conclusions and reassessing our original report, we came up with the bottom line stance, and that is that the proposed KBR Group LLC project makes even more sense now relative to our earlier conclusions relative to 1 year ago. When you talk about COVID, you know, what we're talking about here is a logistics facility that allows for more spacing, greater safety, and promotes more productivity for businesses in Lower Fairfield County. We have witnessed right now, I think, probably the worst recession dating back to World War II, and in the process, the state has wiped out, again, 10 years of job growth in just 1 month. And if we put things in context, Connecticut ranked 50th in terms of personal income growth in 2019 and 50th in terms of job creation. Ranking dead last in the nation, these two economic metrics only underscores the precarious nature of the Connecticut and the Bridgeport area economies. In a recession of this magnitude, it is important to remember that every job counts because of the linkages to income, spending, consumer confidence, and tax revenue. The projected gain here of 164 direct and indirect jobs associated with this development represents good paying jobs that are much needed in this recession. In the first quarter of 2019, with the Bridgeport, Stanford, Norwalk labor market area, within those confines, there were 350 people employed in logistics distribution with a median annual wage of $129,410 and an average annual salary of $145,220. So these are good jobs. These are the jobs that we want to keep. And if we look at the data over time, what we can say is that this is an economy driven by productivity, doing more with doing less. This is a facility that promotes business productivity in Lower Fairfield County. And DataCorp, I think this is one of the better projects that we've seen in recent years.
Thank you, Don. Before I go through a quick outline of the special permit and special restricted industrial standards, I would like Adam Altman to give a little bit of information from the ownership and development side on the development and our efforts.
Thank you, Carolyn. Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Chairman Schulman, commissioners, Mr. Kleppen, members of the public who are attending, who we've met with. Caber Group and Benneroff Properties are local tri-state businesses. Benneroff is a third generation business, real estate business. Caber Group, I started over a decade ago. We've owned in Norwalk and in Stamford, and we still do in Stamford and now in Norwalk. We are owners and operators. We have a long history of development and ownership. We have projects that we've done together, and we own and operate in-house. We will develop this property and continue to own and operate it. So we're going to be accountable for this project. This is us putting our names and our firm reputations on the line, and this is what we do, and we're proud to do that, and we've built up really strong reputations as a result of that. because this is because we do it ourselves, we're going to be willing to set up a community hotline number if approved. So all members of the community can contact us directly 24/7 and express concerns, ask questions, or interact with us. We're not a big anonymous company. Our philosophy is and has always been, and we've developed a great track record of developing as a partner with the local community to make sure that our projects are not just profitable for ownership, but also fit in well with the communities that we invest in. And I think Don's Klepper Smith's economic analysis is very much in line and underscores some of that thinking. This property, sandwiched between I-95 and a rail line, has been a historic part of the once thriving Norwalk manufacturing industry. It is currently zoned manufacturing. It is currently partially occupied. It's currently in use. It has historically been an important part of the Norwalk tax base. Our ownership intends to reinvigorate this site completely in line with its intended use and zoning. We would like to see it become an important part of the Norwalk business community once again. I would underline some of the analysis of our architect that we are, the pictures of the structures that you saw were the existing structures that are there. We're not building big new structures. We are utilizing the existing structures that are on this site between the rail line and 95. So what you see is pretty much what's there now. In addition to the site improvements and public improvements that we are proposing in our application, in addition to the 100 direct and 64 indirect jobs forecasted at this site, we are exploring the potential for an on-site logistics training program that would serve and hold as first priority the residents of Norwalk. It would be an entrepreneurship and logistics training program with classrooms. We are currently engaging in a robust vetting process for the feasibility and implementation of this program, and hope and expect to have more good news for the commission in the coming weeks. This program can serve as a significant opportunity for the residents of Norwalk to remain in Norwalk with the necessary skill sets to achieve the high-paying local jobs that are important and integral to our rapidly evolving economy. When the economy fully reopens, and it will, we want to be on the forefront of providing workforce training for the new technology jobs that are part of the future and should be part of Norwalk's future. We want to keep the people of Norwalk living and working in Norwalk. We are hopeful that with our presentation tonight, that you could see we are committed to and really have done an incredible amount of work, bringing to bear some of the leading industry experts to show our commitment to both understanding the concerns of the community and working really hard to address them. We want to take this currently zoned manufacturing property and bring it to its highest and best use. I hope that the residents of Norwalk appreciate that we intend to be good partners for the community, and that really we believe and expect that all of Norwalk, the entire Norwalk, can have a benefit from this project. This really will be for the benefit of everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. In conclusion, I just want to run through the standards that the commission will be using in judging the special permit application before we continue and hear from the public. Overall, what we are proposing is a beneficial use of a long underutilized site that is an existing industrial site And it is a less intense use that we are proposing than what is actually allowed as of right on the site. In terms of compliance with the special permit standards, the proposed use is in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the regulations. The density and use and bulk of the buildings is appropriate. The building is existing and we're not proposing material changes to it. You've heard at length that the proposed use will maintain stable traffic flow and will not adversely affect pedestrian or vehicular safety, increase congestion, or in any other way adversely impact the surrounding road network. While not directly applicable for the proposed use, there are sidewalks along Norden Place and bus service is available near the site. Existing utilities on the site are compatible, and we're working with Eversource to confirm that electric and gas is sufficient for the proposed use. We expect no adverse impact from noise, emissions, particulates, or lighting. The signage will be designed in compliance with regulations and in conjunction with town staff after approval, so that prong of the special permit standards is not applicable at this point. With regard to the adequacy of open space, screening, and buffering, as you've seen tonight, the existing site is bordered to the north by 95 and to the south by an active freight line. There exist trees on all four sides of the property. Open space is not an issue here given the proposed use, but in any event, this is an environmentally sensitive site where disturbance is discouraged, so we are not proposing many changes. The proposed land use in this area is compatible as this is an existing industrial site abutting I-95 and an active freight rail line. This plan furthers several goals of the POCD as well, which I'll get into in just a moment. The conservation of wetlands is not at issue as we've already obtained our wetlands permits. And generally, the care we've taken in our evaluation and design of the site in not disturbing an already environmentally sensitive site is also protective of the environment. And finally, no zoning violation exists on the property that we are expanding or exacerbating with this proposal. With regard to the additional standards for the restricted industrial zone, you've heard tonight that there will be no adverse environmental impact from the proposed use, and there is adequate provision for sanitary facilities, and the DPW and WPCA have approved our proposal. There's no adverse impact with regard to sound, and there's no adverse traffic impact. Exterior illumination will remain as is and will not intrude upon adjacent properties given the distance between site and adjacent uses. In looking at the plan of conservation and development, which is also a requirement for special permit approval, you'll note that there are action steps incorporated into the POCD to create a multifaceted strategy to support entrepreneurs, startups, and tourism, as well as regional target industries to grow new and existing businesses. There's an action step that encourages updating land use regulations to allow and encourage a wider set of uses in targeted industrial zones focused on market opportunities in warehouse and logistics and other light industrial uses. There is a similar table with action steps to modernize the zoning ordinance and the development approval process to achieve the goals of the POCD, stating that to prepare a study to evaluate the industrial zoning districts against modern industrial requirements, market demand, future trends, and economic development goals. This proposal addresses something that is very much a priority for the city right now with regard to industrial uses. High priority strategies under the POCD for prosperity and opportunity includes the following: study industrial zoning and update zoning and land use regulations to allow and encourage a wider set of uses in targeted industrial zones focused on market opportunities in warehouse and logistics, among other uses. I will also just highlight some of the economic benefits of the proposal that you've heard tonight. This proposal will generate more property taxes for the city of Norwalk, and the property taxes will be paid upon this proposal going through. The logistics industry is booming, and this proposal has the opportunity to bring very good jobs to Norwalk, which will in turn funnel funds into the local economy. And as Adam Altman mentioned earlier, the ownership team is vetting opportunities for an educational partnership that will offer logistics training to the Norwalk community. In summary, our experts have all testified that there will be no adverse effects with respect to the site, environment, noise, and traffic. Proposed conditions and plan revisions, including significant expenditures for public traffic improvements, will ensure appropriateness of use and hopefully ease some of the concerns expressed by the public. Again, those proposed improvements include, just to highlight, improving the turning radii on the northeast corner of East Avenue and Fitch Street, directing its tenants to instruct all trucks to avoid deliveries between the hours of 8 p.m. and 6 a.m., radar detection on Strawberry Hill Avenue, adaptive signal control improvements on Strawberry Hill Avenue at Norton Place and Beacon Street, a $10,000 donation to the Norwalk Police Department for crossing guards. Solar panels subject to further engineering, and though we cannot incorporate a walking path for safety concerns, bike racks could be incorporated. It is important to note that this property will be used in accordance with the zoning regulations, either pursuant to this specially permitted use or for another more intense as of right use. And given the above, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, we have satisfied and exceeded all of the applicable criteria for the issuance of our requested special permit. Put differently, a denial of our application will be based on speculation and potentially rumor, though heartfelt, still speculation and rumor, and not based on the substantial expert evidence that we've put into the record. For these reasons, we respectfully request that the Zoning Commission approve our application, and we look forward to the opportunity to work with the commission and the staff and the stakeholders on getting there. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Cavallo. I want to open it up now to the commission members for questions, comments.
Attorney Cavallo, quick question. On the first, on the plan revisions, the first bullet there, how would you plan to enforce that?
Sorry, which
This
one
is
first?
to the extent commercially practicable, Norton will direct tenants to instruct all trucks to avoid deliveries between 8 and 6 and utilize preferred truck routes.
Yes, though it would have to be commercially practicable, we would encourage all of our tenants to instruct the drivers to respect those hours to the extent that they could. We could not have a blanket prohibition for purposes of safety, which we've outlined in previous meetings. We would always want trucks to be able to pull off the public roads and to get to the site if they happen to come at an odd hour of the night unexpectedly. But it's something that we would encourage, and we would ask our tenants to encourage that as well.
But that means, I mean, frankly, I think what Nick was trying to get at here was there isn't actually an enforcement mechanism. It seems to be that you would be encouraging the tenants, but I assume, and tell me if I'm interpreting this correctly, is that it wouldn't, something like this, language would not be put into a lease agreement. Is that correct?
Well, it may be put it, but you are correct in the thrust of what you're saying, because even if we were encouraging it and if that were incorporated into a lease agreement, we would not be able to make that a default under the lease, for instance. So yes, we would not be able to make that an enforcement that would have something of the effect of a default.
And just to piggyback on that, Nick, the same with the truck routes. I know you've indicated primary, secondary, tertiary, but as practicable, I assume any driver in any truck can decide to follow whatever his or her GPS says, and there's no way to enforce any route. Is that correct?
That is correct, Commissioner Thomas, and I actually appreciate that question because this has all sort of been coming together quickly, and our engineers have been working full steam ahead to get as much information to you and to the public as possible for this hearing. And we actually feel that with the work that our engineers were able to do with regard to coming up with the proposed improvements to the traffic plans and to the expected routes and the proposed improvements to East Avenue and Fitch, and I'll let Craig Yanis speak to this more if necessary, but we actually feel that those now, if that were to work out, where the existing secondary route would actually be the primary route, that may improve the likelihood that trucks would use that route. So we actually feel that that what we've done with regard to the traffic report and study may actually ameliorate that as well. Craig, do you want to jump in and correct me?
Yeah, just to comment on that, that's one thing I wanted to mention in my presentation. So the improvement to the secondary route at that corner will remove all restrictions for truck traffic on that route. So there'll be no geometric or height or weight restrictions on that route, and it's by far the most efficient and direct route from the site to I-95. And obviously, on a site like this, efficiency is key. It also takes advantage of the design that's been done today for the minor arterial routes. So you have Fitch at Strawberry Hill Avenue having a wide turning radius. So the city, by the layout of the streets, is really focusing truck traffic on that route. And now that we are going to improve that corner and remove that restriction, it really facilitate truck traffics to mainly industrial and commercial uses, as opposed to going another route that's a lot more residential, like 136 or Strawberry Hill Avenue to the north.
I raised the question. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I raised the question because at first I thought that sounds like a good idea, but I think as soon as any truck driver sits in the traffic that we sit in on East Avenue, they will very quickly decide it is the least attractive route, even though it may be the most direct. And my fear is that that will actually encourage even more movement north on Strawberry Hill or on Triangle, Winfield, which is why I raised that question.
Yeah, and that is a good point. Obviously, we've heard from the stakeholders that East Avenue is a concern, and through the Walk Bridge project that DOT is undertaking and the design of the improvements on East Avenue, it's actually going to be a 4-lane cross section from I-95 all the way through the Fitch Avenue or Fitch Street intersection and underneath the railroad. So it's actually, planning to improve that entire corridor.
And Craig, isn't it also safe to say that given the peak hours and our calculations for trucks during peak hours, it may not be as big of a problem as it may at first blush appear?
Yeah, I mean, we saw from the analysis that 4 or 5 additional trucks and 60 or 70 60 cars, I guess, 60 cars approximately, would be dispersed over the many routes, right? So you're looking in any direction under the 25 trips. So when you look at any of these intersections, you're talking, 17,000 trips per day on East Avenue. We're only adding 25 in the peak hours. So, it's not a large increase in traffic in the scheme of things. We've proven that by our analysis within the study area as well. But the corridor will be improved by both what we're proposing to do and what the city is proposing to do. And hopefully that really mitigates the issues of trucks going elsewhere.
I just want to circle back for 1 second here, because and Attorney Cavallo, this was a phrase that you would use. I know that Nick and Stephanie kind of hopped on it, but I think that for the record, let's define what to the extent commercially practicable actually means. Because that, to me, seems like a very loose term that a lot of things can fall under. So I was wondering, in your deliberations and in your work as a team, what does that phrase mean to you?
So what that phrase means to me is actually based on the expectation of what this industry is and when the trucks come and go. And the fact that most trucks will not come to a site when there are no employees there to unload the truck. And although we are, just like any office building, proposing that the site be available to the tenants and their employees 24/7, just like this office building that I'm in, that doesn't mean that the tenants will be operating in terms of taking deliveries and preparing deliveries 24/7. That's just not the way the industry works. Most trucks will not come if they can help it. They won't be coming when they won't be received and unloaded and used for the purposes that they are intended to. We would not want there to be a blanket prohibition on trucks entering the site, however, because there may be a situation where there is an accident in, you know, some other state, or there is just delays. And so they would need to be able to get in and park and turn off and stay there and wait for the employees to populate that tenant to whom they are with whom they are interfacing. So to me, commercially practicable means, to the extent that, you know, we would encourage you to fall within these parameters and to have the bulk of your deliveries fall within these parameters, understanding that the tenants can't feasibly, prevent the trucks from coming at times when they are not expected to arrive, nor would we want them to prevent them from coming in when it would be safer for them to come on the odd hour and enter the site and turn off and be safe. So that is what I would say. Furthermore, we would make this approval and the terms of this approval as something that tenants would have to comply with, just the way that we would have any standard rules and regulations. So it would just be explained that that's the expectation. So that's really commercially practicable, is looking at it sort of holistically, but understanding that we wouldn't be able to, nor would we want to, prevent a truck coming in on off hours if it happened to.
I appreciate that. And that makes a lot of sense. I guess the one thing, just to firm this up, is that you are going to encourage the tenants to fit within these, in terms of the stated hours, obviously, unless there's an unpredictable situation, something like a traffic jam or something along those lines. However, while encouragement is the fullest extent to which you can go, this is not something that the tenants would agree to legally upon becoming a tenant in your facility. Is that right?
Correct. And so one thing, just to tie this back to accountability and a point that Mr. Altman made, these are not developers who are coming and fitting up and selling and getting out. This is going to be owner operated. And so there will be a community hotline that they think just makes sense. And so there will be a continued opportunity to have feedback, and there will be someone there to call if there is an issue.
Great, thank you.
Let me phrase Josh's question in a different way. You can't absolutely refuse to allow drivers to come at off hours. However, could we make it a requirement that the tenant will limit its own hours? And I don't know what those hours would be, but let's say from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. So that there's no question that should a vehicle come at an off hour, it can't be offloaded.
I don't know. I think we'd have to think about that. I wouldn't want to give a hasty answer to that. I know that there are industry standards. I would not want to commit to something that would basically make it a very cold call to try to get a tenant for the space. But I do know that we would have anticipated having tenant access not limited, just like any other office space or any other retail space or any other use like that. But we will consider it.
Okay, why don't you think about that between now and the next time we get together. I'm sorry, Galen. Please go ahead.
I don't mean to, but I was going to say, without what you suggest, Mr. Schulman, there would be nothing to prevent a tenant from having a workforce all night, because it suited their business plan to receive goods at night and ship them out first thing in the morning, depending on what kind of goods it is that are being transferred. So you could put in a lease that they will only operate, have people there they would have access, people could come into the office or, come in for the odd thing that they neglected to do, but that they would not have it staffed at night to receive trucks so that they're ready to go in the morning. I mean, I can see, and I'm sure Amazon has around the clock operations at warehouses, for instance.
I think we're all talking toward the same point. I'm curious what the value is for the 24-hour hotline. Most of the concerns that we're talking about now, which would impact the hours that a truck could come to the site and what truck route they are using. So if I live around the corner and I see a truck leaving, or, I hear that backup beep at 3 a.m. and I call, by the time anything happens, that truck is gone. Or if I see trucks ambling north on Strawberry Hill, if I call a hotline, that truck is gone. What do you see as the value of the hotline, and what would the next step be if there are many community complaints?
So I'll just reiterate the fact that we do not see any adverse impact with regard to noise or traffic. And as we've seen in our expert reports, there wouldn't be, there shouldn't be, we don't expect any adverse impact.
I mean, outside the hours, we said no deliveries, or you would try to direct tenants not to avoid deliveries between 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. So I would only know a truck was there if there was a noise, perhaps. So if they are receiving deliveries at 2 a.m. and I call the hotline, I probably won't know that unless that truck is backing up and leaving.
Right. So I guess we just need to take one step back first before I answer that, and just say that all of our models are based on the industry and are based on how the experience of the ownership who have tenants like these and who understand how these tenants work. So it's not arbitrary in setting out when trucks would be expected and how many fewer there would be overnight. Now, having said that, the benefit would be, we are entitled to the assumption that we will operate and we will abide by our approval. But to keep the conversation open and in furtherance of the ownership being a part of the community, we would want there to be the ability for someone to contact the ownership directly if they thought there was an issue. So that would be the benefit of outreach and the community hotline.
Even if you have no means to address that issue once raised?
I'm not sure I understand. So a complaint would be raised, or an issue would be aired?
I'm still addressing the first two bullet points about commercially practicable, which relate to avoiding deliveries between 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. and directing trucks to utilize their preferred truck route. So if a community member saw those two things not happening, or the opposite happening repeatedly, it sounds like you have no means to address those concerns. So I'm not sure the value of.
So there would be a difference between what we could do about it and the effect, and that we would address it to the extent that we could. If there was a complaint, first of all, any complaint about a zoning approval would also be able to go through the normal city process of enforcement if there were issues with any site and any approval. By reaching out and making themselves available, the owners would do their due diligence to find out if the problem was actually created on their site and would try to address it within the means that they have to address it.
And your leases would provide that they would operate from 8 a.m. to, I mean, 6 a.m. or whatever it is to 8 p.m.
No, that Commissioner Wells, that's something that's been requested tonight for us to consider, but that's not something that we have previously committed to.
Chairman, I do have a number of questions, but I'm also sensitive to the public. I don't think I've ever seen this many people on a zoning commission call. So I'm wondering, especially people may have children's bedtimes and that type of thing and want to testify. I'm happy to go to the public first and then get to my questions later.
Well, sure, as long as you understand that we probably won't get to your questions this evening, but at our meeting in January.
Okay. Well, I might not be here in January. I won't be here in January.
I do have one question of Mr. Greenberg that has now been stated twice by him. Am I correct in assuming that there is one movement where at least one of the households will hear noise above the decibel level that's outlined in the city guidelines for 10 to 11 seconds? Did I hear you say that, or did I mishear that?
You did hear me say that. Are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
I can hear you fine. Thank you.
I can't get my video on for some reason. I think the host is not allowing it, but it doesn't matter. Yes, there is as a truck enters, it is above. It is exceeding the code limit for those few seconds, and as it enters it, that goes down. And then I mentioned that it's a very similar in characteristic and time frame as train pass-bys that are quite common, as you would know.
Okay, I thank you for that answer. I think it's important to have that on the record, because you're also then asking for an exception to the city's sound guidelines. I think Stephanie makes a good point about getting the public on board. However, we do have a number of commissioners who haven't asked any questions, and if they have a quick question that they'd like to ask now, I'd like to give them at least that opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a quick question.
Please go ahead, Rich.
Thank you. I noticed tonight that there was no mention in the traffic presentation of the possibility of a ramp on 95. Has that been completely abandoned as a possibility by the development group?
Craig, I'm not sure if you want to jump in. I'll just say it was not originally part of our plan. It's something that was raised by WSP, and Craig did address that in the materials.
Which I read, but I didn't hear anything about it tonight. So I am assuming that the answer was that it's difficult, lengthy, and expensive means no, we're not doing it.
And again, I would like Craig to jump on if he could. It's a little that is part of the answer. The other part of the answer is it would not be up to us to have that ramp put in. That would be something that the city, I believe, would pursue with the state. That would not be something that we would be able to do unilaterally.
So I'm here. I can't put on my video. It's
okay.
But yeah. So I mean, the short answer is, yeah, it would be a larger decision. Also, as I outlined in our responses, based on the FHWA regulations and the spacing of the intersections and a new access from the site, it's extremely unlikely that Federal Highway and DOT would determine that the site would warrant a new access point along this segment of I-95 for congestion, safety reasons of merging onto the highway at an acceptable speed in between those interchanges. It would also require the establishment of a public right-of-way, which is not currently owned by the applicant. So for these reasons, an I-95 access is unreasonable as part of this application. That being said, the applicant is willing to coordinate with the city and the Metropolitan Planning Organization that would have to lead this, because in order for FHWA and DOT to look at it, the Metropolitan Planning Organization has to have it in their regional plan, transportation improvement plan. So that would be the first step, and that's something that they manage and run. And the applicant would be happy to coordinate with them on that.
When?
Whenever they decide to move forward with it.
Before or after approval?
I mean, realistically, I don't think it could be included as a condition of this approval because it would take significantly longer than what our window would be.
Thank you.
Anything else from the commission?
I just have one quick question. We got a letter today, I'm looking, it's dated today, so I don't know if you've seen this, from the town of Westport. And it was from their director of planning and zoning. And I mean, I've been on this commission for I think a year now, and I have not seen a letter like this from another town's planning and zoning commission. Basically, the summary is they say they're very concerned about the project. They weigh in particularly on the traffic aspects and the environmental aspects of this project. And they end their letter with saying, our concern for public safety and traffic outweighs the need for this project, end quote. I just wanted to give you the opportunity to respond to the letter. And if you could just, because I mean, obviously, as we always want to hear what our neighbors have to say, and to hear it from our neighboring planning and zoning commission is not a small thing. So I just wanted to give you the opportunity to respond.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Goldstein. And that letter actually attached the original letter or a previous letter from First Selectman Marby. Yeah,
that's correct.
We did see that today. It was forwarded to us by planning staff, as well as Mary Young, who we are working with, and who is the planning and zoning director, who is in the process of reviewing this. We have not received final comments yet from the director, but she did forward along this from the chair of the commission. We will certainly review it. I will respectfully say that, like many of the interested public commentary that we've seen on this, these concerns are not borne out by the expert testimony in the reports that we have on the record. We certainly respect and acknowledge the fact that it was sent, and we will take the time to review and to respond in our in whatever next supplemental materials we prepare for the next time that we come before you and come before the public. But it is not unlike other concerns that we have seen that, while heartfelt, are not supported by the evidence in the record.
All right, it is now 8:10, and I'm going to ask your indulgence and apologize to the public and ask their indulgence as well. We should hear, at least briefly, from the city's traffic consultant. And along those lines, I also want to get on the record that we have exceeded the budget on that. Attorney Cavallo, I understand that Steve Kleppin's been in touch with you, and there is an additional $7,000 that we will need to bill you for traffic engineering services. Yes. With that, I'd ask I'm not sure who we have here from WSP to speak, but if you could summarize your findings thus far, we'd appreciate that.
Yes, this is Stuart Gordon. I'm the project manager with WSP. And also on the call tonight is William Melendez. He's also a professional engineer and a professional traffic operations engineer who's also assisting me with the investigations of all the information provided on the traffic engineering studies and supplemental information that was very extensive. So today we did provide a updated review memorandum that's dated December 7th. That is published on the public website for all to see. I just wanted to go over some of the conclusions and recommendations for that. As stated, the app has followed the industry standards. They have demonstrated the safety and crash evaluations, the trip generation and distributions and analysis. We just asked for some additional clarifications on our memo today. Based on the site plan, we couldn't tell on the number of handicap parking spaces that are being provided on site. That should be provided in addition to the travel path for the disabled visitors and employees that would be walking on the site. As shown tonight by the site plan, truck traffic will be going down parking aisles through the parking areas that could be of concern for safety for those utilizing the site. Also, the loading docks, they were confirmed that there are 19 loading docks, although one of the figures we couldn't tell if the 3 loading docks were on the southern side, which I believe they are today based on the information that was provided tonight. Also, articulated trucks, we know the applicant has stated that not a significant large percentage of articulated trucks that would be using the primary route based on their experience. However, we were looking to see if they could provide at least an approximate percentage of the articulated trucks utilizing Strawberry Hill Avenue. During the day, there will be about 100 trucks utilizing Strawberry Avenue. We wanted to see what percentage of those would be articulated trucks. Those aren't able to decide what those percentages are, and our further recommendations that we would ask the applicant to consider a traffic study 6 months after the site is open to kind of monitor what the conditions are and what is occurring on the adjacent streets to see if the estimates are matching the study recommendations. And also through the traffic analysis, the synchro capacity analysis was provided by Time Bond. We weren't able to verify the amount of pedestrian calls that would occur at Strawberry Hill and Beacon Street. As noted, the southbound direction resulted in a failing condition. However, it is improved with optimized timings, which we would expect. However, we weren't able to confirm the number of pedestrian calls that were part of that optimization analysis that wasn't on their report. Because any pedestrian call, as you know, at any of these intersections, is exclusive pedestrian call where all traffic stopped, and that would have a bigger impact on the traffic flow at those intersections. So if we can get a confirmation on the number of actuations per hour, that would be great. So that kind of like highlights, what we had seen, and we went through a very detailed evaluation of all the analysis, and these are the recommendations and observations that we've seen so far. I don't know, William, if you're on the call, if you have any additional information you want to share.
Oh, I think you highlighted all of it.
Okay. If there's any questions.
Thank you for the report. Again, I would recommend that anyone that wants to see the city's consultant report up on the city's website, we would also expect before our next meeting that the applicant will respond to any outstanding questions that have been raised by Mr. Gordon. Thank you very much for your report. And now I'd like to give and I apologize again, but a brief statement before we open this up to the public. I want to say a few things about the zoning process, because quite a large number of the letters that were sent to us, and we received over 200 of them, didn't seem to understand the process. First of all, I guess let me say at the start, because many of those of you who wrote letters brought this up, neither the mayor nor any elected officials play any role in the process of either approving or disapproving this project. The commission members are appointed by the mayor, approved by the council, but we are to act independently. We are not supposed to have communication with any outside entities regarding zoning issues that we need to act upon. And that is intended so that any actions we take, each zoning commissioner has the same information as every other zoning commissioner. And I think it's important that you understand that. This application by Norden, which I'll refer to as Norden. Norden, this is a private property owner, and he is making this application in what the applicant perceives to be his best financial interest. Once an application like this is filed, we have no choice but to take action on it. We can't ignore it. We can't disapprove it out of hand. We have a process which by law we're required to follow in reaching a decision. And this is it's not a political process. The commission operates under a series of laws and regulations that define what we can and cannot do. In fact, for many applications, our hands are tied because the application can do what they wish as of right, which means they conform to everything in the regulations. In other cases, such as this one, we have some flexibility, but we must justify whatever action we take in accordance with the applicable laws and regulations. Here's what I think all of that means to those of you who are about to testify. That is, number one, so that we can hear you. Keep your comments as brief as you can while making all the points that you believe it's necessary to make. And to the extent possible, keep your comments focused on the facts of the case. Attacks on the commission don't serve to help us reach a decision. We understand that for many of you, this is a very fraught decision. But please keep in mind that we're constrained by the law, and can only reach a decision based on the facts in the case. Finally, and I point this, you're not being singled out, I point this out for all of our public hearings. Inappropriate language or personal attacks on the commission or the commissioners will require me to have you cut out of the meeting. And frankly, that doesn't serve your interest, our interest, or the city's interest. With that, as each of you figuratively comes to the microphone, would you please give us your name and your address? And with that, I will ask Brian to open up the microphone and explain how this process works online.
Sure. So for everyone of the public who's attending the meeting, there's 2 ways to raise your hand. One, if you're on the Zoom call, if you just hover over with your mouse over the meeting at the bottom of the screen, it'll say raise your hand. You click on that. If you are dialed in on a phone, you hit *9 and that will raise your hand. So with that, I will bring over, I believe, Diane CC.
Thank you. Brian, you said Diane, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Good evening. For the record, Diane CC, Olmsted Place. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of our board, the board of the East Norwalk Neighborhood Association. At a later date or in January, I may also speak as a private resident. Mr. Chairman, if I may ask a couple of housekeeping things before I begin my remarks, just so that the public is clear. At the beginning of the meeting, you stated that the applicant would have an opportunity to rebut, and I wasn't sure if you meant they would be doing their rebuttal this evening at the close of public comment this evening, and then again in January, or only in January.
I would think it makes more sense to simply have that single rebuttal after the January meeting in order to allow as many residents as possible to speak this evening before we close off the hearing.
Thank you. Thank you. I assumed that, but I just wanted to be sure. And I do want to say, and I understand with respect to keeping the timing down before I begin my own, probably 5 minutes worth, because I represent ENNA, that when you ask the public to be brief and not to repeat things you've already heard, in reality, that tends to censor the public comment. The only way to get something into the public record is to speak it. And if people don't want to repeat the same thing over and over, your fellow commissioners don't then lose the benefit of hearing a concern that is raised by many. So if 200 of the people are concerned with air pollution, it doesn't behoove them to say, you know, what other people said. It's also not logistically easy to do that, because if you simply want them to agree with a prior speaker, they either have to write down that speaker's name and say, I agree with them. And if you intend for them to do that, then you would be assuming they're agreeing with all those speakers' points and not specific ones. So I appreciate your advice, but I hope that you'll be lenient in letting people say exactly what they want to say.
Well, we always have been. I think we just ask then that people, especially if they're speaking in support of what other people have already said, that they simply be as brief as they can be.
Absolutely, and we'll respect that. And I just want to just say something to Attorney Cavallo's point regarding the requirement for rebuttal to be expert testimony. I believe after getting the documents that we received, 300 plus pages, after listening to the presentation tonight, where I heard lots of new things and a confirmation of some of the old things, that there may be hours of rebuttal. I have so many notes here, I think I can rebut almost everything they said. I want to ask you, though, please, if you'll take into consideration that I think personal observation is a suitable and a desirable substitute for expert testimony from the people who live in this city. Thank you. I'll begin my remarks now. To the Chairman Shulman and the commissioners, we thank you for the opportunity to address you tonight. I'd also like to thank Steve Kleppen and staff. As you've heard, they've been inundated with hundreds of emails seeking information and submitting comments. And with changing information as late as today, they've been both patient and professional, and we thank them. In addition to the hundreds of emails from our community, ENNA has an opposition petition with over 1,100 signatures. Actually, it's over 1,200 as of tonight. And due to download and formatting issues this weekend, we'll be submitting to you this week as part of the record. For the record, as you already know, the ENNA board, as well as hundreds of residents, have spent the past weeks reviewing and researching, questioning and analyzing an application that just 3 days ago was changed substantially. And I'll add today, it continues to change as we speak. It's unfair to expect the public to learn of a major modification on the weekend and then address it in any meaningful way on Monday. So I would ask the chair to allow the public in January, if they've already spoken, to be allowed to speak again if they're so inclined to speak to new information. Having said that, ENNA would like to submit the following for your consideration this evening as you begin your own process of evaluating this application for its appropriateness. First and most important, due to the nature of the intended use, we will reiterate that even if the application meets all the standard zone regulations for special permit, there are no conditions or quantity of conditions that you can impose that would make this a suitable, acceptable, or desirable use in our community. You have no means to regulate or enforce the number of trucks by condition, nor the size, style, equipment of those trucks, including exhaust system options, nor can you condition only specific window of time for the trucks on public roads. You can't condition the materials that the trucks will carry, nor the specific truck routes, and you also can't condition a minimum number of jobs or the base salaries or how long those jobs would be required to be employed. You can't condition who these unknown mysterious tenants are, and you certainly can't condition anything that results in this having no negative impact on our community. If you intend to weigh the benefits against the negative impacts, there are no benefits, none, including filling an unused building, if you're so inclined, or considering this the lesser of other evils. I'll remind the commissioners there are no other evils that have applied yet. This application did not benefit the East Norwalk community or the city of Norwalk, and it was, and if that was the only issue with this, perhaps that reason wouldn't be a showstopper. But this application not only doesn't benefit Norwalk, it actually impacts us negatively in at least a half dozen important ways, all of which you should take into account under the special permit standards, including the inevitable increase in air pollution, the introduction of new noise pollution regardless of decibel levels, the dramatic increase in truck traffic, including tractor trailers, a predictable decline in property values also that will affect the grand list, the impact on the public's convenience and quiet enjoyment, the multiple components that impact our health and safety, and the fact that this is an application, and this application cannot be defined as being in harmony with the surrounding area, as 100% of the access to this site requires access through our residential areas. This application is completely counter to the TOD project and the East Avenue Improvement Project. I'll certainly speak more to that later in January, which seeks a walkable, bikeable community. The industrial zone at Norton was not intended for warehousing with primarily one company's product, and is certainly not intended for distribution center, the very nature of which implies multiple vendors, all with multiple deliveries. Note tonight that this applicant presented to you all the data related to trucks that are leaving their facility. They never present to you all the trucks that are coming into that facility that make up the multitude of variety of vendors in a distribution center. Besides the direct negative impacts of approving this application, there's one very serious unintended consequence. Should you ultimately choose to approve this, it's our understanding that it would make it difficult or impossible for you to legally deny any substantially similar application for either the other 300,000 square foot side of the existing structure or anywhere in Norton Park and perhaps in every industrial zone in the city. Besides the special permit standards, we'd like you to consider that warehouse as a special permit use there actually exists due only to a lack of it being removed in prior industrial zone studies. It's now to the unfortunate detriment of our residents that this was not done prior to an application coming forward. But perhaps worse is that a new study that would have identified this as an appropriate use was funded on July 1st and is actually underway now. But because this developer got their application in and just under the wire in June, they are exempt from any future changes you decide for this zone. This new industrial zone study is so important to proper planning that staff sought and received from you a one-year moratorium on specific uses in industrial zones. But instead of putting a moratorium on every use while you await the study results, you decided to block only 2 uses, 1 and 2 family houses and contractor yards. Had the East Norwalk Neighborhood Association been aware that warehousing/distribution centers was allowed there under a special permit, we would have lobbied to put a moratorium on that and every other objectionable use in that zoning regulation. And lastly, as you yourselves read over the supplemental pages delivered to you Friday and this afternoon, please note that contrary to the applicant's reference that ENNA requested solar panels and tree buffers, we don't want you to be misled into thinking those were acceptable conditions to either support or accept their application. They are not and will not be. They were merely ideas in a brainstorming type exercise, as we pointed out to the applicant that every site improvement they had planned benefited only the applicant, and to the extent that they would reduce their own costs and increase their own rental revenue. In closing, ENNA will be devoting the next several weeks to reevaluating the materials in their entirety now, including the new materials in the past few weeks, and will present a complete statement to the commission honor before January 7th. In the meantime, individual board members may want to address this commission as private residents. We thank you for your time this evening and in advance for your thorough review of all the materials in this application, then the public feedback, in the hopes that you will make the public the #1 factor in assessing its suitability. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next, I'm going to bring over John Kaides.
Good evening, everyone. Hopefully you all can hear me. However, my name is John Kaides. I'm calling and commenting tonight, not as the council representative of the district, but as a concerned resident of the community in which this project is being proposed. I'll keep this brief. I know we have a lot of people online that would like to also offer their comments. And I'll just say that if there's ever a project that needed to be denied, it is this one. And I implore you, the zoning commission members, to deny this application, as I do believe there's legal grounds to do so. I will just quickly say thank you to ENNA for getting the word out, getting people notified, keeping people informed, and also to the planning and zoning commission members. I understand what it is to donate, to give your time up, give your evenings up, your time away from your family. I want to thank you for all the time you guys do put in. I know we're not thanked often, but hopefully this resonates and you guys, you understand how much of a value you bring and how much you are appreciated. So that's all I need to say. Please, look through. I know you're really taking your time to look through the weeds on this, and there's no place for this project in East Norwalk. It's something that needs to be denied, and I hope you do so. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Next, we have Yvonne Marchese. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, my name is Yvonne Marchese. I live at 28 Myrtle Street. I am very much against this project, and I want to thank the Zoning Commission again for the time that you're putting into this, and Diane Cece for your very eloquent addressing of all the issues, so much better than I could do. Living on Myrtle Street, my experience here is that Myrtle Street already is a cut-through street from Strawberry Hill to East Avenue during high traffic times. And I expect that with increased truck traffic on Strawberry Hill, not only are we likely to get at least box trucks coming down our street, but if not the trucks, then all other cars will be deciding to come down Myrtle Street to cut through to East Avenue. I find it interesting also that the economic report, in talking about the benefits of jobs that are going to be coming to this site, which to my mind doesn't sound like a lot of jobs. The alternative of that, my question is what is that increased truck traffic going to do to the residential property values? I do also wonder if we take, if the proposed change to Fitch, the widening of that turn onto East Avenue, I also want to point out that looking at the map, if that then becomes the primary route, then the 198 trucks proposed going up Strawberry Hill are now diverted supposedly down Fitch, which means we now have an additional 279-ish trucks per day going down Fitch to East Avenue. This is just unacceptable. I have a 13-year-old going to Nathan Hale right now. I have a 16-year-old getting ready to drive, and it's already very difficult to negotiate a left turn onto Strawberry Hill at the top of Myrtle Street. I already feel like we need a light right there. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Torrance Story. Terrence, sorry. And Terrence, if you're there, you just have to unmute yourself. And that should be at the bottom of your screen. If you're hovering over it, it should give you the option. It should be a little microphone icon. If not, Terrence, we can come back to you. So moving on, Raymond, you just have to say your last name and address for us. And same thing, Raymond, at the bottom of the screen, there should be a microphone icon with a red cross through it. Just click on that. Come back to you. John Cadavid. John, to unmute, microphone icon at the bottom of the screen. We have Jennifer and Darren Salmiri.
Hi.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity. I just want to say that my husband and I are incredibly against this. We are very fortunate that we have a blended family, and my stepchildren's mother lives on Myrtle Drive, and we are absolutely against the traffic, the congestion, and what this will be for our community. And while I appreciate that Carolyn, you and Craig have represented your client's best interests, I also appreciate you don't live in Norwalk. And so I think when you think about the fact that our children's walk to school, we live on Saxon Drive, which is an incredibly congested street. We constantly are having cars speed through our street. We had our attempted break-in on Wednesday night, and now you're talking about bringing mass amounts of large tractor trailers. And while I appreciate you've done all your analysis and what the noise ordinance believes, you don't live in our community. You don't know what it's like to wake up in a summer night hearing the traffic from the highway, let alone what retailers or distributors or whoever will take on Norton Place will bring to this community. It is fundamentally against the fabric of our East Norwalk society. And I can't stress enough how much the members of this community are against this. And I highly suggest you absolutely vote against this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next, I'm just gonna bring up Joel Green.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, staff. My name is Joel Green. I practice law in Bridgeport with the law offices of Green, and it's my to appear before you this evening on behalf of the Sasqua Hills Neighborhood Association. The association is comprised of citizens living in...
Mr. Green, I'm going to interrupt you for just a minute. Didn't we receive a letter from you asking that you be permitted, that we allow you to speak in January?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and I just wanted to check in and introduce myself and thank you and the commission for that courtesy. And that was my only purpose.
That's fine. I simply want to make sure that you don't testify twice. If what you're doing is introducing yourself and your clients, I think that's fine.
And I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman, and I think then we've covered it, and the association and our consultants and I look forward to presenting our opposition to the application in January. And once again, I want to thank you and happy holidays, I suppose. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, Steve Mann.
I'm here. Can you hear me all?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Steve Mann. I live at on Pequot Drive, about 4/10 of a mile from the projected site. You know, I'm not an expert, and I listened to the opening remarks by Attorney Cavallo, and I understand that what she's prepared to accept our expert comments. I think there's a big difference between expert comments, facts, figures, and graphs, and somebody who's actually lived the life in a neighborhood that is projected for this East Norwalk neighborhood. We've been here 25 years. I've seen a lot of changes in the area, but this takes the cake. I with all due respect to the research that you've done and the work that you're doing on behalf of your applicant, I just think this is putting lipstick on a pig. I've dealt in the industry of alcoholic beverages for about 40 years. I've stayed in many, many hotels because executive offices to the clients that I've had are in warehouses and distribution centers. And I've stayed in hotels adjacent to those. And I can tell you about the sleepless nights that I've had from the trucks backing up into the docks endlessly. There's no way to regulate this. Independent owner-operated truckers are just that. They will find a way to get their job done most efficiently and most economically efficiently. They will park on Triangle Street. There will be a cottage industry of food trucks that pops up around that. The traffic it'll be unrecognizable to the neighborhood that we live in now. Just I want to illustrate a point. I'm a golfer. I'm not a really good golfer, but I can hit a wedge every once in a while, 130 yards. And that's what I'm talking about. From my house, from my front door to the roof of the proposed site is about a wedge shot. And you have a lot of residents that are living in this neighborhood that are going to be very, very negatively affected, not only by the truck traffic, not only by the congestion, not only by the pollution, not only by the noise pollution, but by the very deterioration of the fabric of this community. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Rebecca Riddle. Let's see here.
Good evening, can you hear me?
Yep. And maybe
Hi,
promote you
how
to
are you?
panelist, but just to work.
So my name is Rebecca Riddell. I live at 4 Greenfield Road. I would appreciate if anyone would love to look at the map and see where 4 Greenfield Road is. 4 Greenfield Road and Roxbury Road are 2 small roads right off of Norden Place, which is right off of Strawberry Hill. As of right now, without even having any truck traffic, we have had to contact the city and the police department because we have several cars throughout the day who are cutting through our small street. Ever since about, I want to say 8 years ago, when a light was put onto Strawberry Hill Avenue. So if you can imagine that we have children, we have actually 12 children who live on our block. Since just a light went in, that has changed how our children have to play on our streets, because we have residents who do not even want to stop at a stoplight right on our corner. So I know that we're just 2 small streets in a large neighborhood, but that would just be the beginnings of having trucks trying to cut in our street. We've actually had trucks trying to come through our street to avoid the light, and they get stuck because they cannot turn. So I can appreciate that you want to bring more business into the community, but this is just a small part of something that would happen. If there's no one there, unless you have a police officer at every light, every street, there will be no way of stopping trucks coming through here any time of the day. Trucks will come when they want to come. Trucks are on schedules. Truck drivers like to get to their destination and maybe stay there for a little while. Even if they can't make a delivery until 8 p.m., that doesn't stop them from coming through the area, as we already heard. There's no one that's going to be policing the traffic. There are so many reasons why this is not a good idea. We have so many major traffic issues on East Avenue, Strawberry Hill. We have a resident who spoke about Myrtle. We have residents that can't even get down Myrtle and make a right turn onto East Avenue now. Residents can't even get through Fitch right now because we don't know who's going right. We don't know who's going left. You don't know if you can even make it through the intersection to get to your home. Even with the project going on with the overpass, we're having major issues. I mean, I can give you so many reasons why this is not a good idea, but I would encourage that you vote no to this for so many reasons. I would just like to say how much this would affect the children in our area, and there are many children in East Norwalk. To say that we can stop trucks going by 3 schools in a school zone at all hours of the day, I don't think that that's something that can be controlled. And the safety of our children should actually be our priority when we're thinking about voting yes to something like this. On top of the traffic issues and the environmental issues and the noise issues, I would just say let's maybe just think about our children first, and that's the greatest issue here, and how everything else would affect our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Kathy Walsh.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Kathy Walsh. I'm on the Planning and Zoning Commission in Westport. I've been on the commission for 12 years. I've been chair for 4 of those 12 years. And I did the heavy lifting on the letter that you've received, although my signature is no longer attached to that letter. So thank you very much, Mr. Goldstein, for bringing it up. I'm not going to read it, but I do want to say that we watch very closely what happens in Norwalk. We consider you to be part of our community. We may not be speaking at your commissions, but I've attended many Conservation Commission meetings and also Harbor Commission meetings, along with our first selectman, Jim Markby, over the past 12 years or so. We are very, very concerned about the traffic in our community. The more I heard tonight, the more concerned I am. The tertiary routes that go down Route 1, what you neglected to do was to analyze the effects of the Route 133 intersection. The trucks can't do it. So I do want you to take a good look at our letter. And I really think that the total effect on our community is important. We work very collaboratively on many things. We worked on the original Avalon project together. So please take a look. So as a commissioner, I think I'm done, but I do want to mention that I'm also an expert in transportation. I'm in the steel industry for 45 years. The questions the commissioners have asked and some of the testimony that I've heard regarding the trucking is spot on. The truck drivers that we employ will drive all night like heck to get to their destination. They'll pull up into your parking lot and sit there until the delivery times are open. So they may be there all night long. In the wintertime, those trucks will be idling to provide heat. So that's a real concern that I think you should have. There's a lot of questions to be asked. The Fitch Avenue, there is no stacking lanes on there. I don't think that's going to be a very feasible option. So you're going to be diverting traffic elsewhere. What I also heard was, to me, I heard code words for CDL licensing and educational facilities. I would ask questions concerning, is there going to be a CDL licensing school there? If so, will there be nonstop truck education going on in that parking lot? So I want to thank you very much. We normally don't speak at your meetings, although we watch. But I do thank you for the opportunity and good luck.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to try to go back to Raymond real quick, who couldn't get audio to work. So Raymond, if I ask to unmute, it should prompt you and you should be able to unmute yourself. Doesn't seem like it's working.
Brian, we've had, what, 3 or 4 people so far who haven't been able to access. Let me just make two points about that. Number one, if it's a hardware issue, hopefully between now and the meeting in January, you can resolve that. And if you want to deal with this in terms of belts and suspenders, please feel free to write your comments if you haven't already done so, and send them to the zoning commission. That way, regardless of whether you're able to get on here, we'll be able to share your comments among ourselves. Thank you.
Okay, next is John Casano.
Okay, hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
We can.
Okay, great. My name is John Casano. I live on Poplar Street in East Norwalk. Thank you for this time to speak. I hardly know where to start. So the idea of adding 200 trucks per day through the primary, secondary, and tertiary routes that I've looked at on these maps is literally insane. The graphs and the charts that have mathematically presented that this is not an issue do not take into a matter of fact the quality of life. Reality is made up of context, not numbers on a graph. If someone's on a bicycle on one of these routes and a semi goes by, that's impact. If children are walking to or from one of those 3 schools on Strawberry Hill Avenue, that is impact. If I'm driving down East Avenue, which is already so congested between Fitch and I-95 interchange, and 2 of those trucks pull out of Fitch in front of me, that is impact. This is just such a bad idea. I know what the words commercially practicable mean. Every American knows what those words mean. They mean that private enterprise can use publicly invested roads and infrastructure and air quality and water quality for private profit, and then those things will be repaired or brought back to normal by more public investment. It is not a good idea to just offer the commons to private enterprise over and over and over again at the expense of the citizenry. This is such a bad habit that it's incomprehensible that after several hundred years, we have not learned this lesson yet. I think you can see that I'm pretty passionate about this. And I also want to add that after having written one of those hundreds of letters, it's difficult to understand or accept that I didn't even get an email invitation to this meeting tonight, and found out through some of my neighbors who are also deeply concerned. Everybody who lives in this region knows that one of the worst qualities of life is traffic congestion throughout southwestern Connecticut, pretty much throughout our state. Densely populated, arteries that are all overloaded. 200 trucks more a day, that makes absolutely no logical sense in any way of slicing this up. Finally, I'll just say that Attorney Cavallo mentioned maintaining stable traffic flow, and it's almost a joke to use those words or that terminology to talk about trying to get up East Avenue in the morning or on the way home at night. So any of these trucks adding to that, and the air quality, everything that goes with it, the context of this, the reality of this, destroys the quality of life in so many ways. And I can define lots of highest and best use proposals for that facility, and this is not one of them. I love Norwalk. I love living here. East Norwalk is a gem. Our neighborhood is amazing. Please help us to keep it that way. We are deeply invested in this town and love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Josh Green.
Hi, this is Josh Green. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Amazing. Okay. So thank you for putting this all together for us. I very much appreciate it. But I'm admittedly a little confused. I want to reiterate a point that Diane Cece made. She made several good points, but the one that really struck me is we have a lot of rejuvenation projects going on at the moment in East Norwalk. One of them being East Avenue, where we are about to allow some new developments to go in, and we're adjusting the width of the street to make it a more pedestrian-friendly zone. And I don't necessarily see how this project works in juxtaposition with the East Avenue corridor project, where we're supposed to be making it a more walkable, friendly environment. So for that reason, I am very strongly opposed to this project.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Marianne Johansson.
Hi, this is Marianne Johansson, 10 Villaway Road. I'm on the ENNA board, but I'm speaking as a concerned citizen. What I wanted to more specifically address is the discussion regarding traffic patterns and environmental. And although there's the recommended routes, I think they were A, B, and C. If you look at during rush hour traffic, any of the routes going northbound during rush hour and southbound coming from Bridgeport, for example, where the various trucks may be going, they're going to recommend, if you're going northbound, to go East Avenue, make a left at Fitch. And if you're going southbound coming from Bridgeport, to get off in Westport and go along 136 and go on to directly into Norton there. So the traffic is going to definitely increase in those areas during rush hour, and it's already bad as it is. With all that added traffic, what that's going to be doing to our environmental impact, which I think it was Tim that brought that up from Ty and Bond, that said that there was really no adverse impact on the environment. Norwalk already has a problem. And I did just some quick research on the EPA.gov website, and the Norwalk, Stamford, Bridgeport area in the major or larger metro areas is ranked 132 out of 340 metropolitan areas, with the initial predominant ones coming out of California. So we're already not doing well from an environmental standpoint. There was another statistic where between 2007 and 2017, Norwalk has seen a 24% increase in pounds of pollution, whereas Stamford, a larger city, has seen a 68% decrease based on the EPA statistics. So what we're now going to be doing is making an already bad situation even worse by adding all of these very large trucks going back and forth every day. That is essentially what I wanted to say. And obviously, based on these comments, I'm completely opposed to this development. I think there are many other opportunities of things to do with that space there that would not have the environmental impact and traffic impact that we're going to see. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is Joe Lichek.
Yes, hi. This is Joe Lichek. I live on Raymond Terrace. I've lived here about 8 years now, and I have two children of my own who go to one goes to Norwalk High, the other one goes to Marvin School, which is closer to the beach. And I see a lot. I mean, I see so many children and pedestrians and bikers already on Strawberry Hill. I mean, this is going to be impactful for any kind of I should say, that type of any type of pedestrians wanting to do recreational activities, things of that nature. My kitchen window looks right up onto Strawberry Hill. So this is how I know this. I mean, I see about 4 or 5 pedestrians per hour, either biking, walking a dog. I mean, it's going to be trucks on that, between that stretch from Fitch up to the highway is going to be is not going to work. It's just not going to work in this situation with seeing, it just scares me. It's a scary situation. This is hard industry kind of stuff. The other thing is the studies. the studies you're presenting are during a time of COVID, during this time of COVID is not, you know, for traffic studies and that sort of thing. It's not getting the proper assessment, because it just, you're not getting the correct traffic load in some instances, with a lot of kids staying home from school and you know, doing online schooling and that sort of thing. They're all going to come back in September, next September of 2021. So, you know, you have to take, you can't, any kind of study from now until then is, as far as I'm concerned, is void. I don't see how you can go by those statistics. So, I mean, with that said, I'll let other people speak, but I highly oppose this. There's just too many children in this area, and too many good families that will be impacted by this. And it's not the right decision for this warehouse to be housed up at Norton's place. Thank you very much, and take care.
Thank you.
All right, and then I just wanted to make a clarification. We got some emails. So you're not going to be able to unmute yourselves until I allow you to speak. So when I allow you to speak, it'll give you a prompt, and then you can unmute yourself then. So right now, you're not going to be able to see a microphone or anything like that. So with that, we'll move on to Karen.
Hi, it's actually Karen's husband, Jeff. I live at 4 Oscar Road. I moved here 4 years ago from Westport into East Norwalk, and I couldn't be happier. It's a tremendous, tremendous area. I appreciate the chance to speak, and I'd like to say to developers, it's interesting when people in your position tell us how we'll feel or how it will impact us, because it's like when a surgeon tells you, you know, you'll feel better in 2 days, having never had that surgery. They have no idea what they're talking about. So it takes me 20 minutes sometimes from Old Saugatuck Road to get to 95. Sometimes it takes 30 minutes. You add these trucks in, it could take an hour and a half. And the first thing I'm thinking about is, hey, I want to move. And if anybody on the development side would like to buy my house and swap with me, I'm open to that idea. Now, I just want to switch topics for a second. I'm actually an expert in carbon and carbon mitigation and carbon emissions. I started the very first carbon environmental asset private equity fund 13 years ago. So I know a little bit about what I'm going to say, and why everyone's talking about the pollution. They don't really look at the numbers. And for these guys to mitigate the extra pollution that's going to hit our area, they need to plant 25 acres worth of trees. They need to plant 12,000 trees just to mitigate the carbon. And that's not from the use of the factory, that's from the trucks. So we're talking about 500,000 tons of carbon. That's 1 billion tons, 1 billion pounds of carbon spewing into our atmosphere. 1 billion pounds, not a million, 1 billion. And we could use that property for so many greater things. We could build a solar farm there. Why wouldn't we do that? We could give power to 1,000 homes with that area. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents. So I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Ellen. So I'll just remind you to say your last name for us.
Hi, this is Ellen Garcia. I live at 15 Bond Street, which is just on the other side of Triangle. Basically, I can see Triangle Street from my backyard. We've lived in our house for 27 years. My husband grew up in this neighborhood and has been in this neighborhood for over 50 years. And a couple of the points that I want to point out is, as Joe Lysick said, the traffic studies were done in 2020 under pandemic circumstances, which do not reflect the actual increased amount of traffic which we've experienced over the past several years. It can take me, as Jeff just said, to go less than a mile from my door to get onto exit 16 at I-95, sometimes 35 or 40 minutes, no matter which route I take. Throw in an accident on I-95 and you'd better just stay home. Right now, people are working from home. Kids are doing school from home. You don't have an actual snapshot of what our life is like already. And then I want to also say that, to reiterate Diane's comment, as well as somebody else's, that this project is completely against the proposed TOD plan, which I wasn't in favor of every aspect of it, but it's definitely better than what's being thrown at us tonight. That is for sure. As a realtor for the past 17 years, as a broker, our property values will be negatively affected by the volume of truck traffic rumbling through our neighborhoods. I also want to say that over the past 16 plus years that I've been a realtor, I've always touted East Norwalk as the next Rowayton, a quaint, undiscovered hamlet in Norwalk. If this is approved, this quaintness will be gone, totally gone. And as my final point, I just want to say, make a comment that does the right of one owner to make money outweigh the rights of our quality of life and peaceful enjoyment and security and the value of our homes of all the affected property owners? So is that one owner outweighing all of our rights? And that's all that I'd like to say this evening, and thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Dick. I'll bring you over.
Mute. Hi, I'm Dick McGonigal. I've lived on Five Swale Road for the past 25 years. My house lies directly across the railroad tracks from the Norden facility. I echo a number of the comments that have been made, particularly one on the value of properties. We had quite a decline after 2008 in our area in house values. In fact, our real estate taxes went down during the last appraisal, the 3-year deal. We've had quite a comeback with the New York City exodus. And I predict that all of that will be lost if this warehouse is allowed to proceed. I share the concerns of my neighbors with respect to the issues of traffic and safety. Most of us like to go over to the Merritt just to avoid the trucks, because it's not just an increase in traffic, it's an increase in heavy truck traffic. I do have special interest in truck safety. I'm a big supporter of Road Safe America out of Atlanta, which is trying to get governors on trucks to slow them down. You won't be able to do over 65 miles an hour. That's the rule in most of Europe now. You have to put side rails on the trailers so that if they jackknife, people aren't decapitated, that kind of thing. And I do believe that truck safety is not a matter of rumor or speculation, as might have been suggested before. In fact, unfortunately, I'm a victim of it. My wife was killed on I-95 at exit 14 in 2007, February 15th. The black box retrieved from the truck cab showed that the driver had fallen asleep, was 12 hours over the rest stop limit, was traveling at 75 miles an hour, and never braked until the point of impact. The driver, of course, escaped with a sore neck, and while criminally charged, never served a day in jail. I agree with those that say truck drivers will do anything they have to get the job done. It's an unfortunate thing. What Road Safe America really wants to do is to pay drivers good wages to drive safely. That's what they do in Europe. If people violate the rules in Europe, the truck is taken off the road for 6 months, first violation, 2 years for the second. They take the truck away from the operator, so the operator can't call and put the squeeze on. That's just a fact of life, and that's what we have to live with. But I don't believe it's rumor or speculation. As a matter of fact, Road Safe America reports that while only 1% of the vehicles on the road are the Class 8 trucks, that is the tractor trailers, 18% of fatal multi-vehicle crashes involve heavy trucks. Just statistics again, evidence. I do have strong concerns regarding the noise and pollution, of course, and we hope to present experts at your January 7th meeting. I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Next is Sharon Mattern.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Thank you. I live at 2 Skytop Drive, and commissioners, I appreciate your listening to our comments and understanding that we are, collectively very concerned about this project in terms of the overall effect it's going to have on our community. I've lived here for 24 years and love it. But while I understand the applicant is filing this within the understanding that's in an industrial zone, you have to understand that that industrial zone is not in an industrial area. This is a residential area, a very desirable residential area. And because of that, it's completely out of line and out of character with what's existing around it. So while certainly they have the right to, look at this for their operations, it's not in keeping at all with the fact that you have 3 schools and a lot of children and pedestrian and bike traffic on Strawberry Hill, along with the already existing traffic on East Avenue, which on a good day, you have the lights backed up under normal circumstances, certainly not during COVID, but, like others have just testified, it can take 15 minutes to go 3/4 of a mile. So I implore you to keep our, neighborhood a safe, desirable neighborhood. We appreciate the fact that there are going to be a lot of changes in East Norwalk, and I applaud the majority of those, but this project is not reflective of what this community and its residents want or need. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next, Tracy Barclay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I just want to say thank you for everybody involved for hearing the residents. I want to thank Diane Cece for clearly articulating the views of the East Norwalk residents. Thank you, Stephanie Thomas, for speaking out as a resident and a member of the committee. I just want to say I am a driver of a commercial vehicle that drives north from East Norwalk daily, most days, to north of Bridgeport and back. So I leave East Norwalk in the morning, return during rush hour. I will say that I sometimes exit 17 coming southbound, depending on traffic, but I often exit 16 because I return to East Norwalk in my neighborhood. And if there is a truck, and it doesn't need to be a big, huge semi truck, it can be a dump truck, it can be a high cube. But if it does not take off like a minivan or a regular vehicle, there might be 1 or 2 vehicles that gets to go left on to East Avenue from exit 16 southbound. So sometimes the traffic backed up onto exit 16 onto 95 is in the 95 traffic. So you'll be sitting in I-95 southbound waiting to get onto the exit there. It's a hot mess. So I can't even fathom putting a semi-trailer in there that's going to make a left on exit 16 and then go down to Fitch and then back up. And this is a huge concern of mine as someone who drives it daily. So I have to agree with the other members who are speaking tonight who is against this project. I'm firmly against it. And I thank you for all that have spoken, and that's my comment.
Thank you.
All right, next we have the Chang family.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, hello. Good evening. Mimi Chang, 37 Raymond Terrace. I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I actually wrote this petition opposing this application in collaboration with Diane CC of ENA. I'd like to ask the applicants' representatives what their plan is to mitigate the increased levels of carbon monoxide, which will be consuming my children's and my neighbors and dear friends' lungs daily as we live on the residential streets, which the tractor trailer trucks and box trucks would be encircling on your primary truck route daily. An applicant representative said earlier in this presentation tonight that the applicant's emissions factors fall in line with previous projects. But these previous projects they were referring to were how many years ago? Traffic congestion and air pollution on the East Avenue corridor has increased exponentially year over year over year. So I feel that the applicant's emissions factors data is inadequate at best, and that their proposal is without question going to destroy what little quality of life we have left here along the primary truck route and negatively impact property values. I strongly oppose this special permit application. You simply can't put a price tag on our quality of life. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Devki Desai.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
This is Devki Desai. I'm a professional engineer. I'm at Sycamore Street and Pine Hill Avenue. Thank you to the commission for allowing us to speak tonight, and thank you to Diane CC for keeping the residents informed at all times in her eloquent comments earlier, which I agree with. So as an engineer, I appreciate the work that went into what was presented tonight, but I would not put my name or my stamp on this project. First, I will address noise. This is something that is very important to myself as well as everybody else on this street. To hear an acoustics consultant tell us that 198 trucks per day on Strawberry Hill Avenue contribute insignificantly to noise levels sounds disingenuous at best. I think anyone can tell you qualitatively that nearly 200 trucks per day do in fact affect noise levels, regardless of exactly how many decibels that is. So everyone who lives in this area can tell you that oftentimes the noise from the highway is deafening. I noticed that the acoustics consultant did not take into account the topography, which sometimes blocks noise, but it also sometimes amplifies it. So depending on which pocket of East Norwalk you live in, you may be awakened at night by the existing highway noise, which has a significant presence of tractor trailers, semis, box trucks, etc. So to make a difficult situation worse, I don't think it's appropriate to say the noise level, the ambient noise level is already high. Therefore, adding to that is not a problem. I do not agree with that argument. Further, we can apply the same thinking and the same reasoning to pollution. 4 out of the 5 past days in Norwalk have seen moderate air quality index ratings. So to take a moderate level of pollution, which is not, in my opinion, acceptable, and make it worse, I don't think it's going in the right direction. I think it's an understatement to say we're not going in the right direction. And so now talking about environmental justice, I've worked on environmental cases in the past, notably the air quality standard for lead. And in these cases, we look at, do projects like this disproportionately affect certain demographics more than others? They often do. I would like to say Norwalk is a very diverse community, and we're very proud of that. We also would like to keep Norwalk clean and green, and it's going to become very important to decarbonize Norwalk as we move forward. And I wholeheartedly support the comments to that end presented by Mr. Bortnicker earlier regarding the 25 acres of trees that would need to be planted to offset the carbon that is going to be added to the atmosphere. Further, the comparison of comparative potential air emissions. Particulate matter is one of the most dangerous emissions, and that is currently the one that Norwalk is often not, is in the moderate to poor level for in terms of the air quality index. That's PM 2.5. So that is going to be significantly elevated with increased truck traffic. Further, I would like to touch upon property values. And now I'll maybe take my engineer hat off and speak as a resident. Last year, would I have considered living on Strawberry Hill Avenue? Absolutely. If this proposal had been on the table last year, when those houses were on the market, would I consider living there? Absolutely not. So why do we live in East Norwalk? We don't live here because we want to work in this warehouse distribution center. We live here because of the wonderful quality of life afforded living in a small town, being able to commute to New York City. A lot of the time we come here to escape the heavy traffic and noise in the places where we do work. And now with the increase of remote working, we're going to see a lot more residents seek Norwalk as a place to work remotely from other remotely for their offices that might be in New York City, Hartford, and Boston. I don't think adding warehouse distribution center jobs necessarily is the right mindset for the economic development of this area. So with that, I just want to say I strongly oppose this proposal. I think there are many more environmentally friendly and culturally beneficial uses for this site. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's see, Brian, it is now 9:30. Why don't we go another 15 minutes with comments, and then we'll adjourn and suspend the meeting until the 7th of January.
Yeah, just to give you. Yeah, go ahead,
Sorry,
Stephanie.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to ask that since I yielded my time, I hope since I won't be here in January, after we close it off, you can spare me 5 minutes so I can read my questions into the record for rebuttal in January.
Will you not be here on January 7th?
I believe I am precluded from doing so, but maybe that's a different question.
But the bottom line is you'll certainly have an opportunity to get your questions on the record.
Thank you.
Okay, and then just to give you guys an idea of where we're at with comments, we still have 19 people with their hands raised.
Well, let's get going, and if it's just a handful of people at 9:45, we'll just push through.
Okay.
So
next
all
up
right.
is Jane.
Hi, my name is Jane Skeen, and I live at 15 Fordham Drive. So my yard butts up directly center to the south side of the building. And as you know, the railroad project has come in, torn out every single tree that borders the railroad and my property. I have the worst view right now. I have mountains of trap rock, tractor trailer parts. I have excavators, all this railroad equipment. The equipment goes back and forth at night. You hear the beep, beep, beep all night long. The lights, the security lights on the vehicle so that they don't run over the workers. It is horrible. And now you're telling me that you're going to add tractor trailer, 6 more on top of the 5 that are there, which are not in use, and they are going to back up, and then they are going to face my property and shine their lights into my bedroom windows at night and add more sound, and the noise is going to be ambient. And like my fellow neighbors have stated, the trucks will idle. They will keep the trucks going to keep whatever's in the truck warm or cold or whatever. This is not how I want my property. When we moved in 3 decades ago, Norton's was a no-fly zone. There were no trucks. It was quiet. It was residential. It was beautiful. I feel like I'm getting hit so hard. 1 with the traffic, 2 with the trucks with the lights, 3 with my value property dropping. There are no trees. There are no sound barriers. There are no sound walls. What are you going to do, or the prospective people going to do about putting up walls and trees and the pollution? I don't think this is a good idea. Thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Charles.
Hi, you can hear me, I hope?
Yep.
Yes,
Hi, I'm Charles Lee. I live at 4 Cloverleaf Circle. And a lot of the points were covered by the public. For instance, with the traffic study, a lot of those months are in the COVID months. They're invalid. I'd love to see that study done in, May or June, when calf pasture beach really gets hopping. That's my first point. I only have 3 points, really. No one's addressed the upshifting and downshifting of these tractor trailers. So Norton is about an elevation about 90 to 100 feet. So when a tractor trailer goes up Strawberry Hill, they're going to be revving, going to shift 3 times. And when you go down Strawberry Hill and they downshift, when you hear a tractor trailer downshift, it's like 85 decibels on downshift if they're not using their brakes. The same goes if they're coming from Westport. They need to go from an elevation of 20 feet to about 70 feet, gunning the engine going up or downshifting if they're going down. So these acoustic studies are done at the entrance of Norton, not uphill or downhill. And my third point is, I think they're downgrading the facility from manufacturing R&D in an office to a warehouse and logistics. So a bunch of boxes compared to an R&D and office. That's a downgrade of the facility, not an upgrade. So that's what I have.
Thank you.
All right, next is Farhan Mimon. Sorry if I mispronounced.
Thank you so much. My name is Farhan Memon. I live at 15 Pequot Drive, and thank you, commissioners and Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to speak this evening. First, I might offer what I would call a point of order. It's my understanding that the commission's rules require a special permit applicant to have paid their back taxes before they're allowed to submit a special permit. And in this case, my reading of the matter is that this applicant still has taxes owing and has asked that his application be heard notwithstanding that. And I just wonder whether or not he's been granted a waiver for that. And the commission should consider whether or not this application is actually in order because of that. I would go on to say,
I'll respond to that because we do have a ruling from the Corporation Council, and we are not permitted to take the fact that the owner is challenging his property tax into account in any way in our deliberations.
fair enough, Mr.
I
Chairman.
asked basically the same question you do.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would direct the attorney for the applicant, Ms. Cavallo, suggested that we ought to consider expert testimony in considering this application. And I would direct the commission to its own peer traffic reviewer, who has stated on at least 2 occasions in its report that they are recommending that truck traffic not be allowed on the streets as a result of this warehouse application during times in which school children are being picked up or dropped off for school because of safety reasons. That, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, is speaking to one of the 18 points in the city's bylaws upon which you should be evaluating this particular application. And, you know, to allow this application to go forward, you know, in face of that would certainly be doing a disservice to the children of Norwalk, who would then have to walk these streets knowing full well that there'd be a safety issue with people and children and neighbors walking the streets of Norwalk while these trucks are going back and forth. I would also point out, echoing the engineer who spoke earlier, that there are certainly environmental concerns here that the applicant has not addressed. You know, when you look at other warehouse applications in residential areas that have been filed throughout the country, applicants have had to address how their application will conflict or obstruct with air quality plans, whether they'll violate air quality standards or contribute to the existing or projected air quality violations. They have to show whether or not they would expose individuals who are sensitive to excessive and substantial and harmful pollutant concentrations. They have to show whether or not their application would result in increased or excessive emissions of nitrous oxide or particulate matter. And they would have to show, amongst other things, that the result of the potential to expose persons to substantial and unhealthy levels of what they call toxic air contaminants is within the guidelines. Here, this applicant has only shown facially what the emissions are going to be for the trucks that are going to be using their facility. They have not shown what the air quality is on the site or modeled what it's predicted to be after many, many years of use. There's ample information within the literature that shows that residents who live close to or abutting sites that have warehouse type uses have increased rates of cancer and increased rates of asthma. There's literature that shows that schools that are along truck routes have increased rates of asthma amongst children. So I would submit to you that the expert testimony offered by the applicant and the consultants is lacking in so many respects as to the environmental issues in this application. I would also submit to you, as someone else has mentioned before, that there are other secondary issues that come about when you allow warehouses and truckers to exist in large numbers, especially in residential neighborhoods. I think it's important to realize that the trucking industry has a problem with human trafficking. And what I mean by that is when you have trucks idling in great numbers and quantities, there are people who service, I'll use that word, the truck drivers. And I'm wondering if that's the sort of element that we want to have into our residential neighborhoods. And not only in terms of its effect on crime within our neighborhoods, but also, of course, in relation to the victims of that human trafficking that might occur. I think also, commissioners, that someone mentioned before, and I think it's important to emphasize again, that there are issues around noise. Simply being within the sound ordinances of the city is not enough. If you are going from a level of peace and quiet right now to a level in which there are going to be trucks that are passing by, even if it's below the ordinance, that is not simply an absolute increase. It's actually an exponential increase when you talk to sound engineers. And I would submit to you that similar to the way that the city has been asked to do a peer review, or has asked the applicants to pay for a peer review, that there be a peer review of a sound expert that is done in order to examine the applicant's consultant, who I might add has an expertise in designing almost exclusively concert halls and not the effects of sound within the environment that we have here in this application. I think that there are many other points on which this application is deficient and could be attacked in ways that you relate to the criteria within the Norwalk's zoning regulations that are really the basis upon which you're evaluating this application. I think that the attorneys and experts that are hired by other parties in this case might bring some of those things better to light than I've been able to do in my brief time here. So I would urge you to consider these points and vote against the application that's being made.
Thank you.
All right, next, Sarah Hunter.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So there's a lot to respond to after a 2.5-hour presentation by the applicant, and I'm going to tell you right now with 9 pages of notes, I'm not going to get to it all. So hopefully I can continue to make a comment in January. I am going to get to the key pieces though, and I think some of the most obvious stuff and some of the most frustrating stuff. So the experts, the applicant experts all testified no adverse effects in terms of the residential area, in terms of pollution, traffic, noise, just all wall to wall, no adverse effects. No adverse effects from a 19-bay trucking distribution center that is going to put a big rig thoroughfare through a residential neighborhood. Come on, common sense tells you that doesn't make any sense. So I don't mean that to sound flippant, but it is really goes to the heart of what we're saying here about experts who come to the table with something that is designed to have you all say, that's a good idea. I feel like one of the things that I found disturbing about how those experts spoke and then how it was recapped by the applicant's attorney is that she has said that that the comments by the public were speculative, though heartfelt and speculative. Well, here's the thing. We don't know who the tenants are. Nobody has said who the tenants would be. All of that is speculation. Every expert is telling us how much pollution, how much traffic, how much everything else based on speculation. They're not telling us that based on who the tenants would be, what their businesses would be, how many trucks they would actually have coming and going. So the applicant's experts are speaking off of speculation, though heartfelt. So I think in some way we need to realize that there needs to be more time for deeper digging on experts and what they have to say. It was very, to Farhan Memmon's point, it was, there was a lot of, I don't think he used this word, but light approach from the experts, not a lot of deep digging. Other people had mentioned, and I'm going to bring it back up too, that the pollution study was lacking in an approach to anything to do with the topography. You had information that was just centered on a little tiny piece of real estate, but not talking about the trucking thoroughfare through a residential neighborhood and what that does when there is constant, no time for any of that diesel fume pollution to dissipate because they would be coming constantly. All of this is based on an unrestricted use of trucks. They can encourage, as they said, truckers to come at different times, encourage people to have different entrances or exits, but all of that, to the point that the attorney made, doesn't, it's all whatever's practicable. So we don't know who the tenants are, so we can't say exactly what they're going to want, but the tenants are going to be making their requests in order to be able to have the practicable business that they want. So I think there's a lot more to be done there in terms of talking about what the real experts need to be looking at in terms of pollution, in terms of noise. Noise, I want to go to that for a moment. Whatever those studies were, they were limited to noise in ways that did not talk about adding to the existing noise. And that's really what you're talking about putting on the residents. We do have highway noise. We do have that already. And it's not always great, but it's not always bad. Putting the trucking thoroughfare through a residential neighborhood means there's always going to be bad. And there are not any pieces of information about what happens to that noise with the topography going up and down, shifting up and down. I thought about finding a recording of what that sounds like when an 18-wheeler does that downshifting noise and upshifting, and playing it here for all of you just once. Then I thought none of us could tolerate that. And I thought that's really the point. Nobody should be able to have to deal with hearing that incessantly going through their residential neighborhood. So those things are a lot of things to come back to at another time. What I really want you to understand, I mean, we do need to be able to get some real experts who will speak to the fact that the noise studies are not sufficient, the pollution studies are not sufficient, none of that's sufficient. But I want you to understand what we have here that matters to us, to the residents, because I've lived here 25 years and I love my little home on Schofield Place and I love my neighborhood. And I should point out, I'm saying all of this as a private citizen. I know that sometimes I speak for the NNA, I'm speaking as a private citizen here. I've owned my home for 25 years. This application for a special permit should be denied to protect me and my neighbors from the noise, the pollution, the truck traffic, the devaluing my property. This area is residential. It's a nice place to live. In fact, it's been promoted in the city in their recent TOD plan as a valuable residential area. Make it into a truck thoroughfare by virtue of a special permit is just unacceptable. There are no mitigating techniques that you can use that will make this better. The applicant used the word improvements over and over again. None of this is improvements unless you remove all this truck traffic that you're talking about. There's not improvements for us, the residents, when you're doing things to make a trucking route more viable. That's not an improvement to us. The idea that, well, this all, it won't be so bad because of these studies is just willfully pretending that this isn't going to be what it is. If you vote to approve this, it would be like asking the residents to drink a daily glass of cancer-causing pollution, because it's not going to stop. It's not going to dissipate. It's going to be incessant, and there will be no restriction on it. Here's the thing about where I live that makes me love it so much, because you're hearing my concerns and you're hearing everybody's concerns. This is why I love it here. This is actual people who live here. The girls across the street from me play basketball outside every day, outside my kitchen window. The dog owner next to me walks her dog Leo on these streets twice a day. The neighbor with a dog named Riley walks from Raymond Terrace up through Saxon and Schofield every day, and I always say hi to him. The boys on North Bridge Street, and there's a pack of boys over there, come and play ball and ride their bikes down here, and I see them and we have a laugh sometimes. Sometimes they are too loud, I don't care, but there's boys and they're having a good time and they're playing ball, and there's girls playing basketball. The kids all go down to Maplewood. They go down Schofield Place and they go down to Maplewood and they use the playground and they go with their parents. I can't even tell you how many times I see parents walking with a stroller around these streets, and they love it here, and we stop and we talk. The kids who cross over Strawberry Hill on bike and on foot, they can do it. There's already too much traffic, but it can be done without taking your life in your hands. I don't know how they would possibly cross a street with 18-wheelers going down it nonstop. Just drive on Raymond Terrace in the summertime, and you'll see all the neighbors out in their front yards, talking to each other, mowing their lawns. Watch all the kids walking from school to and from through these residential streets, and you'll start to see how much outdoor use these residential neighborhoods enjoy. Talk to any one of the neighbors on my street about our backyard get-togethers from springtime, summer, into the fall, because we love being outside and socializing with each other. And we have a rare place where our political differences fade in light of how happy residential community we are and talk to each other. You're talking about essentially putting us all inside. You're going to put these 18-wheelers coming through a residential area, and we're all going to not be outside. We're just not. Why would we? We'll be listening to it. We'll be breathing it in. Who's going to want to go for a walk and cross the street? We don't have to drive anywhere right now to socialize. We just get to enjoy our homes. We get to have our windows open. This is going to devalue our property. This is going to devalue our quality of life. What I just described to you, if you can stop, take a moment and picture what that's like to have people walking with their strollers, walking with their dogs, saying hello. All of that goes away if you do this, if you allow this, all of it. When they talked about, and this is the last thing I'll point out here because the rest of it needs to come back at another time and be detailed about pollution. But when the applicant said, oh, well, the traffic study, oh, well, you know what? We looked at how many collisions and trucks, and, you know, it's basically some fire truck hit a, you know, bicycle one day. That's all that ever happened. You're looking at studies that are not with the trucking thoroughfare there. You're completely missing the point. The point is either there's going to be a hell of a lot more accidents, or people just won't go out there because it's so terrifying to walk next to 18-wheelers. It'll completely destroy our way of life. So essentially, I could take this apart, and I will take this apart. I didn't have the benefit here of preparing my statements. None of us did. We all heard 2.5 hours, and then we're responding on the fly from our chicken scratch notes. I will prepare my response for January, and it will be more structured. But you need to understand that this is a non-starter. This is not, you have to oppose this special permit. When we get into the details, it's all going to be the same thing. This is not acceptable. There are no mitigating circumstances that will make ruining our neighborhood worth it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian, we've been at this 4 hours. In fairness, I think we're going to suspend the hearing and we'll reconvene it. Steve, double check with you. Is that January 7th?
Yes, that's the first Thursday of the month.
I did screenshot the order of the hands raised right now, so assuming everyone's there for the next meeting, I'll call in that order.
Lou, you've muted yourself, Lou.
Sorry, Steve. I was asking whether January 7th is the proper date, or we should push it back to our second meeting.
No, I think January 7th, and we'll, you know, it's a little difficult to see what else is going to come into the agenda picture at that point, but I think we'll plan for January 7th and move things around accordingly.
All right. And if the other commissioners are okay with that, can you just let me know right now?
Yes, we're okay with that.
I'm okay with it.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. And Stephanie is going to have to let us know whether she will still be able to be a member of the commission.
So-
By then,
So
yes, go ahead.
if I'm not able to participate in that meeting, what opportunity do I have to submit my questions?
Well, I guess there are at least two things that can be done. One is you can speak as a private citizen, or number two, if you wish to provide your questions in writing, I will be happy to ask them in your stead.
Sounds good.
Either way.
Maybe
Okay.
both.
All right. It's been a long evening for the public that's still on. I appreciate your patience. I'm sorry we couldn't get to everyone this evening, but for those who haven't been able to speak, there will be an opportunity on January 7th. And typically what we do in terms of allowing people to speak a second time, it's typically done when and if there is new information provided by the applicant. Then people are given an opportunity, people who may have spoken before are given an opportunity to respond specifically to that new information. And that's what I would propose we do on January 7th. With that, can I have a motion from the commission? Steve, unless there's other business, there's nothing else on our agenda.
I purposely put nothing else on your agenda.
Okay, I appreciate that. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, Stephanie moves. There a second? Josh, you're unmuted. A second?
Frank. Give it to Frank.
Okay. Josh seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?